Chapter 1451. To everyone's surprise, the battle broke out in an instant. The Divine Chef Temple was located in the center of the Divine Dynasty, and no one expected that someone would fight there. The moment the battle broke out, it attracted everyone's attention and made them suck in a cold breath. Of course, it was normal for there to be a battle, but it was not normal for a high-grade god to fight. Rumble! Thousands of sharp knives emerged and slashed down as if they had come from the ancient times, causing heaven and earth to change color. The terrible knife light could destroy heaven and earth. The moment it slashed down, the whole capital shook. Rumble! The knife spread for 30,000 miles. It contained 99,999 knives. It was a large blade aura formed by countless small blade auras. This was a divine power that only god-kings or gods who had comprehended the supreme laws of the universe could comprehend. As soon as the divine power was unleashed, heaven and earth changed color. A terrible aura pierced through heaven and earth. Luo Sanyang was already stunned. She was so shocked by Bufang's power that she could not help but kneel on the ground and clamp her legs together. A demigod? How the F***ck could he be a demigod? Even the crown prince would be killed in an instant at this moment. The power of this knife was simply terrifying. This was the true power of a divine ability, a true divine ability. It was not just Luo Sanyang. All the onlookers around them sucked in their breath. Everyone's faces were deathly pale. Whether they were demigods, low-grade gods, or mid-grade gods, they were all shivering at this moment. Bam! Bam! The long street cracked, and the knife energy spread for 30,000 miles. It was as if it was going to cut half of the Divine Dynasty's capital to pieces. In the Divine Chef Temple, a supreme existence opened his eyes, and a terrible aura spread. In King Pingyang's residence, a middle-aged man with sharp eyes that looked like spears ripping through the sky stood up. The top experts of the various aristocratic families all sat up with a bang. In the imperial palace of the Divine Dynasty's capital, there seemed to be a furious roar that resounded. The Divine Dynasty's laws. No high-grade gods are allowed to fight in the capital. Put them in prison. Anyone who resists will be killed on the spot. That voice was incomparably majestic and filled with earth-shattering prestige. It was as if it resounded from the 9 heavens, causing everyone to kneel on the ground. Boom! His words fell. In the imperial capital, an expert clad in armor stepped out of the air. A terrifying aura spread out, and heaven and earth seemed to change color in an instant. The terrifying saber chi swept across thousands of miles. However, it didn't spread in the end. After all, this was the capital of the Divine Dynasty, and if it was allowed to spread, it would inevitably cause serious damage. It might not cause many casualties, but the destruction of the buildings would be fatal. In King Pingyang's residence, the Divine King stepped out on his chariot. 9 silver dragons pulled the chariot and floated in the sky. It was a magnificent sight. He gently pointed his finger. It instantly caused the spreading blade chi to stop abruptly and disperse with a bang. His dazzling gaze was like a scorching sun that illuminated the entire sky. The silver dragon roared, twisted its body, and flew across the sky. Before long, it was hovering over the Divine Chef Temple. The man's eyes were blazing as he observed the situation below. King Pingyang's pupils constricted as he let out a cry of surprise. Underneath, Bufang felt a sense of loss. The divine power liquid droplet's power was completely consumed, but it was only able to unleash one slash. However, that slash was already terrible enough, and its power seemed to be no weaker than that of the perishing pot. Heaven and earth were destroyed by the slash. The saber chi slowly dissipated. There seemed to be a ravine running across the ground. It kept crumbling. On the ground there was a figure kneeling. He was no longer breathing. His body had collapsed, and the saber chi kept spreading across it. When everyone saw that, they all sucked in cold breaths and felt their hair stand on end. They couldn't believe it. What happened? Is that Mo Feng a high-grade god? A high-grade god is dead? Everyone was dumbfounded and didn't know how to express their emotions at the moment. He was killed by a demigod? With one slash, his body collapsed, and his soul was destroyed. Is he really a demigod? A demigod who can kill a high-grade god? Heavens! How could there be such a terrible demigod in the world? Even King Pingyang, who was hovering in the sky, was shocked. Such a heaven-defying demigod? Even if he did it with other means, it's still the ability of a demigod. I don't think even the crown prince can do it. Bufang felt his body stiffen. That's right. At this moment, his divine sense was completely drained, leaving not a single drop behind. The slash just now had drained all his strength. To use a divine power liquid drop to activate a divine power, the power was extremely terrible. But this kind of method was indeed not something he could use at present. Bufang's face was calm. Although his body was drained of energy and he was really at the end of his rope now, he was not in a hurry. However, Bufang didn't panic. He flicked his finger. An invisible divine flame sprang out in an instant. It drifted to Mo Feng's body. This guy should be the most miserable high-grade god in history. He was killed by a demigod, and he was extremely aggrieved. Rumble. The divine flame was very strange. Even the fleshly body of a high-grade god was slowly melting under its burning. Bit by bit, the power of the law began to disperse from the high-grade god's body. It was absorbed by the divine flame. Mo Feng had comprehended 36 laws, which meant that he had a lot of them. However, the divine flame could only devour 20 laws, and that was its limit. The divine flame flew back to Bufang's side. It turned into a silver flame, pulsing quietly. The power of the law kept pulsing in the flame. The power of dozens of laws pulsed, burning quietly as if to distort the void. Bufang was shocked. He suddenly had an idea. How terrifying would it be if the divine flame devoured 3,000 laws? A man's talent was limited, and he might not be able to comprehend 3,000 laws, but the divine flame could. If it kept devouring, it would eventually be able to gather all 3,000 laws. Once all 3,000 laws were fused into one flame, the divine flame would probably be the strongest divine flame in the chaotic universe. I can do that! Bufang's eyes flashed as he put away the divine flame. When he raised his head, he saw many figures gathering in the sky. A terrible aura filled the air. Among these experts were many high-grade gods, and there were even some terrifying existences that even Bufang could not see through. These people were probably the top experts of the divine dynasty, perfected gods and even god-kings. A figure stepped through the air, and heaven and earth fell silent. The clanging sound of armor clashing rang out. It was a man with a pale face, but his eyes were full of ruthlessness. As he walked, a terrible aura rolled out of him. King Pingyang's expression flickered. I can't believe this guy has come out. The armored man's speed was extremely fast. In just an instant, he appeared beside Mo Feng's corpse, which had been incinerated into ashes with a single step. He looked indifferently at Bufang. Luo Sanyang was already trembling, her body shaking like a sieve. A black-armored imperial guard of the divine dynasty, Luo Sanyang's eyes were full of horror as she stared at the armored man. Her body went limp and fell to the ground. There were 3 imperial guards of the divine dynasty. They were black-armored, silver-armored, and golden-armored. Their cultivation bases were mighty, and they only obeyed the divine emperor's orders. They were the strongest experts under the divine emperor. Each of them was a god-king. No one had expected that this battle would actually draw out black armor. Even the divine emperor was furious. High-grade gods are forbidden to fight in the divine dynasty's capital. Don't you know that? Black armor said indifferently. His face was pale, and he looked very fragile, but in fact, his thin body was full of power that could destroy heaven and earth. He wanted to kill me, so I fought back, Bufang said, taking a deep breath. Black armor was very strong, unprecedentedly strong. Bufang knew that he was no match for him. The gap between them was too great. Black armor nodded thoughtfully. That's true. If a high-grade god wants to kill you, it's not right for you not to fight back. However, the laws of the dynasty cannot be violated. I'm going to put you in prison, Black armor said. Relax, it won't hurt at all. Black armor said. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure disappeared from where he was. When he reappeared, he was already in front of Bufang. He lifted a finger and pointed it at Bufang's forehead. It was a very calm gesture. Suddenly Black armor's hand was caught. God King Pingyang appeared and grabbed Black armor's hand. Are you going to stop me, Your Highness? Black armor said woodenly. The Divine Emperor's order cannot be disobeyed. Don't, Black armor. Give me some face. My son asked me to protect him. You can't let me lose face in front of my son, can you? King Pingyang said with a smile. I'll plead for him with the Divine Emperor. King Pingyang winked at Black armor, not showing the demeanor of a god king. The people around him were already shaking. Black armor, King Pingyang. These were all top experts in the Divine Dynasty. Each of them was in existence who could shake the Xiaoyi Divine Dynasty. Your Highness, don't you know whether you have face or not? Black armor replied expressionlessly. No one can save him. Since the imperial concubine has spoken, he must be killed. Oh? The imperial concubine has spoken? King Pingyang's expression flickered slightly. The imperial concubine of the Divine Dynasty, the woman of the Mo family? King Pingyang glanced at Bufang. This brother of my son is awesome. I can't believe he dares to kill someone from the Mo family. He sighed inwardly. It seems that I really can't keep him here. But I'll give it a try. Oh, Black armor, I, Hu Pingyang, will treat you to a drink some other day. I'll make an exception this time. He's just a demigod. We can kill him with a fart, King Pingyang said, winking. However, Black armor still looked at King Pingyang with an expressionless face. He just watched quietly to see if King Pingyang would panic or not. But he still grumbled about King Pingyang's shamelessness. King Pingyang winked at him, showing no sign of embarrassment. Black armor sighed. King Pingyang, you can't save him, he said. His voice faded away. A terrifying rumble suddenly resounded. In the distant sky, a figure tore through the sky and approached. A terrible aura shook heaven and earth. Hu Pingyang, how dare you protect this beast? I, Mo Pao, will slaughter all 3,000 people in your residence. The void was torn apart. A burly figure stared coldly at King Pingyang. King Pingyang's expression changed, and he looked back coldly. Mo Pao, the head of the Mo family? Isn't this old fellow exploring the relic of an ancient heaven god? Why is he back? Now no one can save this boy. Luo Sanyang was in despair. Black armor, the imperial concubine, the head of the Mo family, any one of them could poke Bufang to death with a finger. How could Bufang defend himself in such a desperate situation? No matter how talented a demigod was, he could not defy heaven. Luo Sanyang looked at Bufang in despair. That gave her pause. She found that Bufang, who was in such a desperate situation, did not look desperate at all. Does this guy still have a trump card? What kind of trump card can fight a god king? Chapter 1452. When Luo Sanyang saw Bufang's calm look, the despair in her heart seemed to calm down a lot. Yes, she was no longer in despair. She didn't know whether Bufang had a trump card or not, but according to common sense, he shouldn't have any more trump cards. After all, no matter how talented Bufang was, he was only a demigod. As Hu Pingyang said, if a god king wanted to kill a demigod, he could do it with a fart. Therefore, she could not guess what kind of trump card Bufang had that allowed him to face such a desperate situation. Black Armor and the head of the Mo family had come together. Although the imperial concubine did not appear, once she gave the order, even a god king would not be able to save Bufang. The head of the Mo family, Mo Pao. He was furious at the moment, and there seemed to be thousands of flames roaring in his chest. His eyes were wide as if a divine fire was burning in them to destroy everything. His Mo family had been destroyed by someone. By a demigod, a mere demigod. A demigod whom he could kill with a single spit, had destroyed the Mo family. Ah! I'm so angry! The head of the Mo family walked step by step through the air. The aura emanating from him seemed to shake the whole divine dynasty. Heaven and earth fell silent. Hu Pingyang stared coldly at the head of the Mo family in the sky. Mo Pao did not have a good reputation in the divine dynasty's capital, and he was not on good terms with him. He said that he would kill 3,000 people in his residence. Does he think I'm a sick cat? If it wasn't for the fact that Mo Pao had a good daughter, would he, Hu Pingyang, be afraid of Mo Pao? Damn it! Hu Pingyang was furious. Black Armor glanced at Hu Pingyang. As he expected, Hu Pingyang had left. Stepping on his chariot, he rushed into the sky. He would not get involved in this matter anymore. Hu Pingyang was not very familiar with Bufang. He only wanted to help Bufang because of his son. Now, it seemed that Bufang had poked a hornet's nest, and it was time for him to get out. In King Pingyang's residence, there was a helpless look in the young master's eyes. He also knew that his father had tried his best. Unfortunately, Bufang had made a big mess this time. He had killed Mo Hen, crippled Mo Tsang, destroyed the Mo family's mansion, and killed their high-grade god. This kind of battle record was so terrifying that it was not something that a demigod could achieve. Bufang was very monstrous, and his degree of monstrousness made him admire him. Unfortunately, Bufang was not destined to live for long. What kind of enmity did they have to offend the Mo clan to such an extent? Sigh. The young master sighed. Hu Pingyang turned around and left. The head of the Mo family, Mo Pao, landed. He landed beside Black Armor, his aura surging like a dragon. The head of the Mo family had just entered the Immortal King realm, and the Mo family was about to be conferred the title of king, and the Mo family mansion was about to become a prince mansion, but in the end it was destroyed by Bufang's dried pot. How could Mo Pao tolerate such a grudge? If he did not cut Bufang into 1,000 pieces, he would not be able to vent the hatred in his heart. Mo Hen was his son. Although his talent was not good, he had supported the Mo family's business and made it rise rapidly. He was even ready to make Mo Hen the second in command of the Mo family. In the end, Mo Hen was dead. Mo Tsang was crippled. Just like that, the Mo family's vitality was greatly damaged. Damn it! I worked so hard to risk my life in the relic of an ancient heaven god and was tortured by King Black Dog, but in the end, my family's base was destroyed. How could he not be angry? If he did not kill the boy in front of him, he was afraid that his heart would explode. Head of the Mo family, please calm down. No strong god king aura is allowed in the divine dynasty's capital. Black Armor glanced at Mo Pao and said with an expressionless face. Mo Pao glanced at Black Armor, then retracted his aura. He did not give Hu Pingyang face because Hu Pingyang was just a god king who had lost his status. He did not need to give Hu Pingyang face. But Black Armor was different. This guy was the divine emperor's favorite. If he offended him, and this guy called Silver Armor and Black Armor to stop him in the relic of the ancient heaven god, he would not even know how he died. Silver Armor and Gold Armor. The cultivation bases of those two were very terrifying. Black Armor, leave this demigod to me, Mo Pao said coldly, his voice full of killing intent. However, Black Armor shook his head. Head of the Mo family, please behave yourself. According to the divine dynasty's laws, this man should be put in prison, he said. What the hell did he mean by being sent to prison? Mo Pao was speechless. If he was put in prison, he could still get him out and kill him. What was the point of doing that? It was something that everyone knew. Couldn't he be a little more open-minded? Black armor. This man killed the imperial concubine's nephew. He must die. Leave him to me, and the imperial concubine will be satisfied. Mo Pao said meaningfully. Black armor looked at Mo Pao quietly. I'll see if you feel guilty or not. Head of the Mo family, don't force black armor. According to the divine dynasty's laws, enough. Mo Pao's face was extremely dark. I should be able to kill him on the spot. Mo Pao roared. If you stop me again, I'll report this to the imperial concubine and she'll kill you. Mo Pao's eyes were red with anger. Black armor twitched his mouth and took a step back. The imperial concubine is a very reasonable person, he said seriously, but in the end, he chose not to stop Mo Pao. Mo Pao turned his head coldly and looked at Bufang in the distance. This time, no one could stop him from killing Bufang. Do you know what crime you've committed? No one can save you now. Mo Pao said coldly. He compressed his pressure and enveloped the area around Bufang, trying to make Bufang kneel on the ground. Luo Sanyang's face was pale. Under the pressure of a god king, she trembled all over, and blood spurted out of her mouth and nose, staining her clothes. This pressure was too strong. Just the pressure of a god king was enough to kill her. Suddenly, a figure approached from afar. In a flash, he landed next to Luo Sanyang. Mo Pao, this has nothing to do with my daughter. I'll take Luo Luo with me. Every debt has its debtor. The figure landed and unleashed his divine might, blocking Mo Pao's pressure. Luo Sanyang breathed a sigh of relief. She fainted. Before she fainted, she saw Bufang's back, which was as straight as a pole. The head of the Luo family glanced at Bufang and sighed inwardly. If Bufang had not offended the Mo family, he would have invested in Bufang to save Bufang, given his talent. However, this fellow had offended the Mo family, which was backed by the imperial concubine. He could no longer intervene. As he grew older, he had more concerns. With a sigh, the head of the Luo family took Luo Sanyang into the distance. In the distance, Luo Hui and the others hurriedly took over Luo Sanyang's unconscious body. Mo Pao did not stop them. Although the little girl of the Luo family was guilty, he had to give the head of the family some face. The culprit was the demigod chef in front of him. The divine chef temple? How could those people offend the Mo family for a mere demigod chef? Even if this chef had a chance to break the seal of the ancient heaven god's inheritance, so what? Compared to offending the imperial concubine, this kind of capital was not enough to make the people of the divine chef temple stand up for Bufang. No one can save you now. You will die. Mo Pao said. Bufang stood straight in the divine might. The vermilion robe flashed, and Bufang's eyes grew serious. The pressure of a god king was like the sky falling down on him. If it were not for the vermilion robe's effect of blocking the pressure, he would have fallen to his knees. Is this really a hopeless situation? Bufang was a little nervous. Indeed, the situation this time was indeed a little difficult. Whether it was black armor in the distance or the head of the Mo family, none of them was something that Bufang could resist. The god of cooking's divine power liquid drops were also used up. Only the gold dragon and the vermilion bird were left with the artifact spirit. Even possession was not enough for a god king's fart, so Bufang was a little helpless. But he had no regrets. How could he stand by and watch the Mo family deprive you of her talent? As long as he could save Nethery, it was worth it. However, Bufang also had a headache about how to escape this disaster. Should he escape into the heaven and earth farmland? Impossible. Once Bufang opened the farmland, the God King would be able to find its location in a flash and capture him. At that time, the farmland might be destroyed. What should he do? Bufang calmed down and forced himself to breathe steadily. Oh! Suddenly, Bufang seemed to have thought of something. With a wave of his hand, he pulled out a jade pendant that he had casually thrown into the system's storage space. Bu Fang was a little suspicious. He did not know whether he should take it out or not. He always felt that Mu Hongzhi was a little unreliable. But now, perhaps he could only pin his hopes on this jade pendant. Bu Fang could not see through Mu Hongzhi's strength. Even though the man had reached the demigod realm, Bu Fang still could not see through him. That fellow seemed to be a mystery. Mu Hongzhi was the previous host, but he was unfathomable like chaos. A mid-grade god? A high-grade god? No, even a high-grade god could be killed by Mu Hongzhi with a fart. Phew, Bu Fang exhaled. His eyes gradually lit up. In that case, I'll reluctantly believe Mu Hongzhi this time. At the thought of the latter's face, which was more beautiful than a woman's, Bu Fang decided to believe him. Mo Pao approached step by step. He wanted to crush Bu Fang's body inch by inch, pull out this demigod's soul, and whip it 1,000 times. Only then could he pay homage to Mo Hen's spirit in heaven. Die. Mo Pao's voice was cold. His aura was so cold that a chill emerged around him, and the sky was filled with snow. With a single thought, the laws changed. This was a god king who was above the perfected god realm, a king among gods. He slowly raised a hand. It contained the terrifying power of the laws. Buzz, it was the power of the laws that could crush everything. The law of destruction. That was Mo Pao's law. Bu Fang's pupils constricted. Those who could become god kings must have comprehended either the top laws or the supreme laws of the universe. Mo Pao did not comprehend the supreme laws, so he only comprehended the top laws. However, since he could cultivate to the god king realm, this kind of top law was not something Bu Fang's current law of transmigration could resist. Perhaps the moment they touched each other, the law of transmigration would be destroyed. The palm would eventually fall. Wait. Give me 1 second. All of a sudden Bu Fang spoke. Everyone was taken aback by his words. They all looked at Bu Fang in confusion. Mo Pao's face was cold. His killing intent did not diminish, and his palm still fell. His killing intent soared into the sky. What could he do in 1 second? It was enough for Bu Fang to take out the jade pendant. It was a white jade pendant, round with the character Hong engraved in its center. It was full of a strange aura. For a moment, the atmosphere froze. The moment the jade pendant appeared, everyone's gazes fell onto it. Black armor sucked in a cold breath. In the sky, King Pingyang was dumbfounded. The head of the Luo family was shaking violently. Damn it! This jade pendant! The head of the Mo family's palm paused and did not fall again. Bu Fang's face froze. It really works. At the thought of Mu Hongzhi's beautiful face, Bu Fang twitched the corner of his mouth. Fortunately, I didn't trust the wrong person. Suddenly, the corner of Bu Fang's mouth froze. In front of him, Mo Pao's aura suddenly erupted, soaring into the sky like a volcano. *CK your grandma. Die. 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 Mo Pao's eyes turned red, as if he had a blood feud with Bu Fang. His killing intent grew many times fiercer. The people around him, Black Armor and the others, looked at Bu Fang with killing intent in their eyes. King Pingyang, who wanted to save Bu Fang, could not bear to look at the scene, so he turned his head away. I can't believe he's wearing this jade pendant. He'd better die. Bu Fang. Is this the script? Bu Fang's face was expressionless. Mu Hongzhi. *CKU. Chapter 1453. Expressionless, Bu Fang looked at the token in his hand and had an impulse to crush it. But he held back. He had cursed Mu Hongzhi 1,000 times in his mind. Bu Fang rarely lost his composure, but this time, he really could not hold it in anymore. This is too King ridiculous. He had been fooled by Mu Hongzhi. No wonder that guy smiled so obscenely before I left. Bu Fang suddenly felt a little sad. He looked up at Mo Pao, who was as angry as an erupting volcano, and sighed softly. Mo Pao's aura rushed out like a mountain torrent as if to destroy everything. It was extremely terrifying. His eyes were bloodshot as he stared at Bufang as if he was staring at his mortal enemy. If the previous Bufang had filled him with killing intent, the current Bufang who had taken out the token made Mo Pao want to tear Bufang into 1,000 pieces. Why does he attract so much hatred? The corner of Bufang's mouth twitched slightly. He thought he had attracted a lot of hatred, but now it seemed that he was still a little worse than Mu Hongzhi. That guy must have done something infuriating in the divine dynasty. The surrounding heaven and earth were suddenly compressed. God King Pingyong, the head of the Luo family, and the others could not bear to look at it. They thought that Bufang would have some other trump card, but it never occurred to them that Bufang would take out such a jade pendant. Does he want to die too slowly? Rumble. Once a god king got angry, heaven and earth would change colors, and their terrible power was enough to destroy heaven and earth. Bufang sighed. Life was as lonely as snow. Mo Pao's eyes shone like torches as he pointed out a finger. It tore the sky apart. The turbulence in the void kept surging as if to shatter everything. It was extremely terrifying. The finger kept moving toward Bufang, getting closer and closer. If it fell, Bufang would be completely crushed to pieces. Suddenly, as Mo Pao's finger approached, Bufang froze. The jade pendant in his hand flickered with a warm brilliance. Slowly, it floated up. He transformed into a bolt of lightning and charged towards Mo Pao in the distance. In the end, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, it collided with Mo Pao's finger. Bang! There was a loud explosion, like a gorgeous firework blooming. 7 colored flames surged in the sky. Melodious music began to play, very much like the BGM of Legends. The corner of Bufang's mouth twitched. Mo Pao, who was in the sky, was furious. Such a familiar style. This familiar routine. It was indeed that damned fellow. Mo Pao roared. His roar shook the entire capital and spread in all directions, shocking all the people on all sides. Who was it that provoked a god-king level powerhouse? Puff puff puff, the dazzling scene was accompanied by a melodious music. Xia 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 quietly passed by, leaving behind a little secret. I suppressed it in my heart, suppressed it in my heart. I can't tell you, heh? This is background music. It should be. Bufang looked up at the sky, his face expressionless. Like a bird startled by the twang of a bowstring, Mo Pao fled in an instant and shot into the distance. His figure was accompanied by the melodious music. A blurry silhouette appeared in the sky. It was a beautiful face, so beautiful that it seemed to be able to topple cities and kingdoms. Countless people were mesmerized by it. Her long black hair spread out, her robe fluttered, and she held a feather fan and a silk handkerchief. Coupled with the background music, it was quite magical. It's him. So beautiful. Which great world is this romantic beauty from? I feel like I'm falling in love with her. She's so beautiful. Around them, countless people were amazed, their eyes blurred. They looked at the figure in the sky and took deep breaths. Mo Pao's eyes were fixed on the figure. Black armor had a complicated look in his eyes. King Pingyong was dumbfounded, and the corner of the head of the Luo family's mouth twitched. The familiar music, the familiar figure, and the familiar face. Could it be that man was coming back? Love my ass. That's a man. As if he had heard someone's whisper, Mo Pao let out a roar that shook heaven and earth. The people around him fell silent. A man? Many people were rendered speechless. Oh, it's very lively here. Mu Hongzhi's figure smiled faintly. The background music slowly faded away. Looking at Mo Pao, who was very close at hand, he smiled gently. Little brother Bufang, I didn't expect you to wait until now to use the jade pendant. You're much later than I thought. Sure enough, you're much worse than me when it comes to stirring up trouble. Mu Hongzhi said with a smile. Bufang rolled his eyes. Was that something to be proud of? In fact, Bufang just wanted to open a restaurant in peace. Stirring up trouble was not his style. Mo Pao was furious. However, he was not in a hurry to make a move. The man in front of him was more beautiful than a woman, and his strength was extremely terrifying. He had once turned the Divine Dynasty's capital upside down. But didn't they say this man has retired? Why is he back? The people around him did not know what to say. With his hands clasped behind his back, Bufang exhaled softly and sat down. He was tired, and he needed to rest for a while. Mu Hongxi's appearance seemed to have attracted everyone's attention, so Bufang could take a breather. However, what Mu Hongxi said next almost made Bufang choke on his breath. Well, little brother Bufang is here to inherit my mantle. You know, you don't have to give me face. I'll kill him. Mu Hongxi smiled faintly. Bufang's face froze. This Mu Hongxi is stirring up trouble. Is he trying to make me hate him? Bufang rose to his feet, his aura fluctuating violently. Mo Pao and the others fixed their eyes on Bufang. Summer passed quietly, leaving a little secret in the bottom of my heart. I can't tell you, hee. The background music reappeared. Then, Mu Hongxi's figure popped like a bubble. A terrifying power of law exploded on Mu Hongxi's body. It scattered like fireworks. This sudden and unexpected event shocked everyone, and all of them swiftly raised their heads and stared at the sky. Mo Pao narrowed his eyes. Bufang paused too. A mighty aura rose into the sky from the direction of the Divine Chef Temple. This aura caused everyone's expression to change. The Divine Chef Temple? Why did the people of the Divine Chef Temple make a move? How dare they? Mu Hongxi's figure disappeared. Then, a figure stepped out of the Divine Chef Temple. A blood-red dress flapped noisily in the wind. The Deputy Lord of the Divine Chef Temple? All the people present sucked in their breaths. Even such an existence has appeared? Mu Hongxi's appearance has attracted the attention of so many experts. Bufang was taken aback as well. Who is Mu Hongxi? I thought he might be just an ordinary official in the Divine Dynasty, but it seems that's not the case. His identity is definitely not ordinary. Bufang was suddenly curious about Mu Hongxi's identity. The Deputy Lord of the Divine Chef Temple was a woman in a blood-red dress. However, her appearance could not be seen clearly because her face was covered by a silver mask. They could only feel the terrible aura emanating from her. As soon as she appeared, she walked toward them step by step. Mu Hongxi's figure was shattered by her. Everyone's heart froze. Did Mu Hongxi have a grudge against the Divine Chef Temple? The woman's aura was extremely strong, and Bufang could feel the heart of cooking path from it. It made Bufang narrow his eyes. There was no doubt that the woman was a chef, and her cooking skills were not weak. I'm taking this man away. Who dares to stop me? She said indifferently. Her voice was cold and emotionless. She pointed a slender finger in Bufang's direction. Impossible, Mo Pao said coldly. How could he let this woman take Bufang away? This little beast must die. Did I ask for your opinion? The woman said coldly. The eyes under the mask were as sharp as divine swords. They were dazzling. Her figure flickered in midair, and the next moment, she moved sideways and appeared in front of Mo Pao. Then, she slapped a palm at him. Boom! Mo Pao raised his fist to block without fear. Both of them were god kings. The noise caused by the collision was terrible. Black armor and King Pingyang's expressions flickered, and they both unleashed their supreme power to block the shockwaves, preventing the aura from spreading. However, contrary to everyone's expectations, Mo Pao actually spat out a mouthful of blood in this collision and was sent flying. He fell hard into the void. A mere newly advanced godly monarch dares to offend this palace lord? The woman said disdainfully. Mo Pao's face was pale, and the laws over his head kept surging. The power of more than 100 laws was fluctuating. He was a little shocked. He had always thought that the divine chef temple was just a power with an undeserved reputation, and he never thought that it was guarded by such an expert. This little chef is related to that man, so I must take him away, the woman said. There was a hint of resentment in her tone. Bufang's hair stood on end when he heard that. There was definitely no kindness in her words. No. He must die. Mo Pao growled. The power of the laws surged. A terrible aura emanated from his body. At this moment, he was about to unleash his full power. However, the woman just raised her jade-white palm. She slapped it down, and the void seemed to be torn apart. Mo Pao was crushed to the ground. King Pingyang and Black Armor both took deep breaths, feeling the horror of this woman. At some point, King Pingyang had come to Black Armor's side and muttered in a low voice. I heard that the Deputy Lord of the Divine Chef Temple is the younger sister of the current Divine Emperor, which makes her the princess of our Divine Dynasty? Black Armor was from the Imperial Palace, so he should know better than him. Black Armor glanced at King Pingyang as if he was looking at a guy who was courting death. I, Black Armor, don't know anything, Black Armor said. That gave King Pingyang pause. The next moment, a fiery red palm came slapping toward him. The power of the laws contained in it made his hair stand on end. King Pingyang quickly moved away with lingering fear in his heart. This woman is too hot-tempered. She's like an abandoned wife. Mo Pao coughed up blood. He could not beat this woman. The pressure she gave him was supreme. A deep sense of frustration emerged in his heart. Mo Pao's heart was burning with rage. Suddenly the woman landed. He landed at Bufang's side. She looked at Bufang and her calm eyes met Bufang's. The next moment she raised her hand. Her hand was flawless and eye-catching like white jade. She pressed it on Bufang's shoulder. Then, the woman stepped into the void and flew away with Bufang, heading toward the Divine Chef Temple. She disappeared in a flash. Mo Pao watched with reluctance. He watched helplessly as Bufang was taken into the Divine Chef Temple by the woman. He wanted to resist, but he could not. Damn it! I'm going to report this to the Divine Emperor. I'm going to sue the Divine Chef Temple. Mo Pao was furious. His cold voice rose into the sky, and then he flicked his sleeves and left. The people present were left looking at each other in dismay. Black Armor looked sympathetically at Bufang, who was taken away by the woman. He opened his mouth but did not know what to say. Chapter 1454. The outcome was beyond everyone's expectation. King Pingyang shrugged. In the end, Bufang was taken away by the Divine Chef Temple. Although he did not know whether he was dead or alive, at least he was alive before they took him away. So King Pingyang did not stay for long and returned to his mansion. Luo Hui carried Luo Sanyang on his back. Suddenly Luo Sanyang slowly regained consciousness. She had not been seriously injured, but her mind had been shocked. Her body had reacted to the self-defense mechanism, so she had fainted. Now that she had adjusted her condition, she woke up. She opened her eyes and looked around. The ground was a mess, but she did not see Bufang. Where's Bufang? Luo Sanyang hurriedly asked. Could Bufang really have been killed by Mo Pao? However, it was hard for her to imagine how Bufang was going to escape from Mo Pao. After all, Mo Pao was a god king, and he had comprehended at least 100 laws. In front of a god king, Bufang was no different from an ant. Luo Hui's expression was a little strange. He did not know how to tell his sister. He was a little confused himself. Who would have thought that Bufang would be taken away by an expert from the Divine Chef Temple? And there was such an existence in the Divine Chef Temple? In just 2 moves, he had defeated the newly advanced God King, Mo Pao. He had basically crushed him in a completely one-sided manner. Of course, Luo Hui could not tell whether the woman was trying to save Bufang or not. However, when she thought about it, Bufang should not have a good ending either. He did not say much. The head of the Luo family took her home and forbade her from getting involved in the divine chef temple. It was because the divine chef temple had saved Bufang. And Bufang was the man the imperial concubine had ordered to be killed. The divine chef temple was going to be in great trouble, and the head of the Luo family did not want Luo Sanyang to fall into it. He did not know how the divine chef temple would face it. Mo Pao flew into a rage out of humiliation and wanted to report to the divine emperor. A god king's report was enough to attract the divine emperor's attention. So, a major earthquake was going to happen in the divine dynasty's capital. The storm soon swept through the entire capital of the divine dynasty. After all, this news was too big to be concealed. Mo Hen, the business genius of the Mo clan, died tragically. Many mid-grade and high-grade gods had fallen as well. When this news came out, everyone was extremely shocked. Everyone was dumbfounded when they found out that the instigator of all this was just a demigod. There probably weren't many demonic demigods who were so monstrous. Of course, this matter also involved the confrontation of many major forces. Among them, the divine chef temple's involvement attracted the most attention. In the capital of the divine dynasty, the divine chef temple was a behemoth. It was said that it was a power that could compete with the imperial court. Mo Pao stepped into the palace. Step by step, he climbed the stairway to heaven and entered the depths of the palace. He reported the matter to the imperial concubine, who was so furious that the whole capital was shaken. However, everything calmed down after the divine emperor spoke. This matter needs to be considered at length. Those were the emperor's exact words. As soon as these words came out, everyone fell into a deathly silence. Even the imperial concubine dared not say anything. Since the divine emperor had spoken personally, no one dared to disobey him. However, the divine emperor had spoken personally about this matter. This was a little interesting. All the forces began to guess the divine chef temple's identity. The divine chef temple, the top floor of the skyscraper, towered into the clouds. Through the transparent windows, one could see the white clouds drifting in the air. The whole divine dynasty's scenery could be seen. Bufang was sitting in a chair on the top floor. Right in front of him was a woman in a red dress. She stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window with her hands clasped behind her back. She wore a silver mask and was looking into the distance. Bufang could only see her back. She was graceful and had a perfect figure. However, the terrible aura emanating from her made Bufang not dare to look at her casually. The fact that she could defeat Mo Pao with one move showed that her strength must be extremely terrifying. The woman said nothing. Bufang was too lazy to talk. He took this opportunity to recover his divine sense. At least he would have some strength when he fought back. Time passed slowly. The woman kept looking at something until the sky darkened and there were only stars in the sky. Bufang sat cross-legged and began to cultivate, recovering his strength. At night, the sky became more and more charming and beautiful. It was as if he could touch the stars with just a lift of his hand. At this moment, the boundless starry sky came into his eyes. Bufang opened his eyes. He was back to his best state, and there seemed to be a stream of light flashing in his eyes. Bufang felt that his divine sense had grown a little stronger. The deficit this time was beneficial to the strengthening of his divine sense. There was no limit to the cultivation of his divine sense, so Bufang could keep growing. As for the cultivation of his fleshly body, he needed to complete the restaurant's sales task and exchange it for the sales. "You've recovered?" the woman said faintly with her hands clasped behind her back. There was no one else in the room, so she was naturally talking to Bufang. Bufang stood up and nodded. Without waiting for the woman's consent, he went straight to the floor-to-ceiling window. Looking at the beautiful night view, he was somewhat attracted. "It's very beautiful. The night sky, the stars, the sea of stars. It's very attractive," Bufang said. The woman finally turned her head in surprise and looked at Bufang. "You're very brave. Do you think I'm saving you?" she said. To tell you the truth, when you took out Mu Hongzhi's jade pendant, I wanted to crush you, she said coldly. As the words left his mouth, the atmosphere in the room dropped to a freezing point. It was extremely cold. The corner of Bu Fang's mouth twitched. Does she hate me so much? What kind of romantic debt did Mu Hongzhi leave behind that this woman would hate me so much? But it was the jade pendant that saved you. Otherwise, I don't think you could have survived that desperate situation. The woman in red said lightly. Bu Fang couldn't see her face because it was hidden under the mask. Only her eyes could be seen. Her eyes were like chaos, full of mystery. Why? Bu Fang asked, puzzled. The jade pendant is a keepsake belonging to Mu Hongzhi and the Lord of the Divine Chef Temple. Do you understand? The woman gave Bu Fang a sideways glance. I hate Mu Hongzhi, but that's my business. As the Lord of the Divine Chef Temple, I have to give him some face, so I saved you, the woman said. Can you tell me where Mu Hongzhi is? Here it comes. Bu Fang's heart skipped a beat. Perhaps this was the woman's real purpose, which was to save him. She probably wants to know Mu Hongzhi's whereabouts. Bu Fang had thought that Mu Hongzhi was really a border official of the Divine Dynasty. Now, it seemed that the former border official might have been thrown somewhere by Mu Hongzhi, and that fellow had assumed his identity. Otherwise, with that fellow's hatred, how could he walk out of the Divine Dynasty's capital safely? If I tell you where Mu Hongzhi is, are you going to find him and kill him? Bu Fang asked curiously. The red-robed woman looked at Bu Fang and shook her head. A look of regret came over Bu Fang's face. Mu Hongzhi had tricked him, which made Bu Fang very uncomfortable. He thought the woman was going to kill Mu Hongzhi. Forget it, you don't have to tell me. I don't want to know where that stinky man goes. But let me tell you, I didn't save you for nothing. Even if I give Mu Hongzhi some face, if you want to live, you have to seize the opportunity in your own hands, the red-robed woman said. Bu Fang paused for a moment. The next moment, the woman's delicate hand once again pressed on Bu Fang's shoulder. Buzz, the void seemed to change. It was only a flash. The woman brought Bu Fang to the place where the ancient heaven god's inheritance was sealed. The law of space? Bu Fang sucked in a breath of cold air and looked at the woman in bewilderment. Do you see that inheritance seal? If you want to live, then break the seal on the second layer. If you can't break it, then you'll die. The woman said. Since you can't break it, I'll kill you for the sake of Mu Hongzhi. The corner of Bu Fang's mouth twitched. He felt that there was something wrong with this sentence. After saying that, the woman stopped talking. He just looked at Bu Fang quietly. It brought an invisible pressure to Bu Fang. Bu Fang frowned, feeling that this woman was not joking. The second layer of the inheritance seal was also the test of the wok-tossing art of affliction. Bu Fang had completed the first small task, but the following tasks were even more difficult. The current situation might not allow Bu Fang to have any choice. The only way was to complete this mission. If he completed it, according to the woman's wishes, he would be able to live. If he failed, the woman would kill him for Mu Hongzhi's sake. Therefore, what was the use of Mu Hongzhi? Bu Fang rose to his feet, his vermilion robe fluttering. With his hands clasped behind his back, he walked toward the ancient inheritance seal. When the surrounding divine chefs saw Bu Fang, they were shocked and puzzled. Some people were very excited. Bu Fang was here again. Was he going to completely break the second seal of the inheritance? The woman leaned against the railing and looked at Bu Fang from a distance, facing the seal. Her eyes flickered with a bright light. She looked at him with a serious look that she had never seen before. At this moment, Bu Fang's mind was drawn to the inheritance seal. Rumble! The black wok, the stove, and the countless grains of stardust in the wok appeared in front of him. Bu Fang's face became very serious. He grabbed the black wok. His divine sense surged, and he began to toss it. Rumble! Rumble! Every time the black wok hit the stove, a loud rumble rang out. And outside, A number appeared on the seal. The numbers kept jumping, attracting the attention of all present. Everyone thought that Bufang was just challenging himself. In fact, this test concerned his life and death. Chapter 1455. Bufang faced the array. All eyes were on Bufang. Many people expected Bufang to create a miracle. In fact, if even Bufang couldn't do it, perhaps no one else could. Although Bufang was only a spirit divine chef on the surface, in fact, Bufang's cooking level was not weaker than that of an ordinary earth divine chef. This was also the reason why Bufang was able to break the inheritance seals several times before. On the high platform, the woman with the silver mask stared at Bufang intently. If Bufang failed, she would kill Bufang without hesitation. Even though Bufang had Mu Hongxi's jade pendant, he was no exception. However, if Bufang succeeded, at the thought of that, the woman's eyes flashed brighter and brighter. In the ruins of the Mo family, Mo Pao, the head of the Mo family, stood quietly, looking coldly at the ruined mansion. This time, the Mo family had suffered a great loss. It would take several months to rebuild the mansion, which would be a tough time for them. All the families in the Divine Dynasty's capital would regard them as a laughingstock. As an aristocratic family, the most important thing was their face. They could not tolerate being the laughingstock of the other families. Therefore, Mo Pao was furious at the culprit who caused all this. He was a god king, and yet he was bullied like this. For him, it was a slap in the face. However, the Divine Emperor had personally ordered them not to attack the Divine Chef Temple. This made the anger in Mo Pao's heart almost overflow. Since he was not allowed to do it himself, Mo Pao naturally dared not disobey the Divine Emperor's order, so he had to think of another way. Mo Hen was dead. The death of a business genius was definitely the greatest loss to the Mo family, and it would even make the family decline by several levels. Mo Pao was also angry. Since Mo Hen had a talent for business, he decided to make good use of it instead of thinking about making up for his lack of talent in cultivation. Now, he had killed himself. He had also seriously injured Mo Tsang, and his mind was shattered, which he had yet to recover from. Even if he recovered, he was destined to be a second-rate genius, not a top-notch one. The more Mo Pao thought about it, the angrier he became. He clenched his fists tightly, his eyes almost spitting fire. Suddenly, he loosened his grip, and his eyes revealed a trace of calmness. "Do you think I can't deal with you if you hide in the Divine Chef Temple? I have plenty of ways to kill you. I don't believe you can hide in the Divine Chef Temple forever. As soon as you come out, I'll kill you." Mo Pao was extremely ferocious. When a god king flew into a rage, the atmosphere in the entire capital seemed to become oppressive. The atmosphere in the Divine Dynasty was indeed depressing these days. The sky was gray, as if it was going to rain heavily. The Divine Chef Temple. At the location of the inheritance seal. The number on the inheritance seal kept changing. His speed was getting faster and faster, and it was also getting more and more terrifying. It's too scary. Just how strong is his divine sense? More than 60,000. This might really break the record. The higher you go, the more difficult it is. The further you go, the more difficult it is. I hope Mr. Bu can create a miracle. All the divine chefs took deep breaths and craned their necks, their faces full of curiosity. They were looking forward to seeing Bufang bring them a miracle. Over the past few days they had been hit hard. The second seal had hurt countless divine chefs. If they failed, it would cause great damage to their fleshly bodies. The masked woman watched indifferently. Suddenly, she focused her eyes and fixed them on Bufang. Rumble! All of a sudden, Bufang's body released a wave of energy. Buzz! Bufang's divine sense was running at full speed, and the vortexes in his spirit sea kept spinning. Every time they spun, the power of Bufang's divine sense would improve significantly. He clenched the black wok. Inside the array, Bufang was soaked with sweat. His arm was as red as fire, like a piece of hot iron. His sweat was conquered by it, turning into steam and rising into the air. The sizzling sound of the wok being tossed rang out. Every time he tossed the wok, the star sand in it would roll, rush up and fall. The rhythm was steady, neither fast nor slow. In fact, the rhythm was also adjusted according to the strength of one's divine sense. If the divine sense was weak, the rhythm would naturally slow down. However, once it slowed down, it would take more time, which was not good news for the task. Time passed. The number on the array kept changing. Bu Fang's divine sense was getting tighter and tighter, almost reaching a limit. Once he loosened his grip, his divine sense would easily collapse. Of course, the effect was obvious. The number on the array had reached 80,000. In the Divine Dynasty's palace, the majestic imperial palace had red brick eaves, white jade floors, green bricks and jade tiles. Every single building was filled with an artistic feeling and was filled with a luxurious aura. In the imperial palace, armored imperial guards were walking. They patrolled to protect the order and safety of the palace. In a side hall, a woman in a luxurious golden phoenix robe sat on a chair. She had a beautiful face, and the corners of her mouth were curled upward, but there was a hint of harshness in her eyes. In front of her, several experts in chef robes knelt on the ground. Their auras were very strong, and most of them were mid-grade gods. They could all be considered Earth Divine Chef. If Bu Fang were here, he would definitely see a familiar face. That man was Master Ching. After leaving the Divine Chef Temple, he had joined the Imperial Concubine's team of chefs. At this moment, he was responding to the Imperial Concubine's call and respectfully facing her. Although the Imperial Concubine was just a woman, her aura was extremely strong. Although it was not as strong as a God King's, Master Ching felt as if he was facing a vast ocean. You are the Earth Divine Chefs of the Imperial Kitchen, and you have a distinguished status. You should have a name in the Divine Chef Temple, so it's easy for you to enter the temple. So, I need you to sneak into the temple and kill that little beast for me. The Imperial Concubine's face was cold, but her beautiful face was full of harshness. The Divine Emperor had ordered her not to attack the Divine Chef Temple openly. But she could come in a roundabout way. Imperial Concubine. The Divine Chef Temple is heavily guarded and guarded by countless experts. Although we are mid-grade gods, I'm afraid it's impossible for us to kill that little beast if we sneak in. Besides, that little beast's cultivation base and fighting prowess are very terrifying. He can even kill a high-grade god. If we fight him, we'll just die in vain. Master Ching naturally knew how terrifying Bu Fang was. He had been punished by Bu Fang many times, so he was afraid of Bu Fang. I have my reasons for asking you to enter the Divine Chef Temple. That little beast's fighting prowess is strong, but he has consumed a lot of energy in the previous battle, so he won't be able to kill a high-grade god in a short time. I'll give you a secret technique that can kill anyone below the high-grade god realm. As long as you run into that little beast, kill him immediately. The technique is strong, but it can only be used once. I hope you won't disappoint me. If any of you succeeds in killing that little beast, I'll make him the head chef of the Imperial Kitchen. The Imperial Concubine sat elegantly on the throne. With a wave of her hand, phoenix feathers that looked like burning flames immediately floated out. It landed in front of every divine chef. This phoenix feather contains the power of the ancient phoenix, but it can only be used once. Use it well and kill anyone below the high-grade god realm. The Imperial Concubine said. Master Ching took the feather and fiddled with it fondly. His eyes were also filled with resentment. He had been living well in the Divine Chef Temple, enjoying the resources provided by it. But as soon as Bu Fang appeared, he fled the Divine Chef Temple like a stray dog. He would not easily let go of this enmity. Go. The Imperial Concubine was too lazy to say too much. She only hoped that these chefs could kill the little bastard who had killed her favorite nephew. She must take revenge for this. If it weren't for the Divine Emperor's order, she would have ordered silver armor to attack the Divine Chef Temple with 3,000 Imperial guards. That damned old man is actually protecting the Divine Chef Temple. The Imperial concubine narrowed her eyes, and a terrifying aura fluctuated. Boom! The whole inheritance seal was shaking. Everyone looked ahead in disbelief. Every single one of them was trembling with excitement. The number on the array kept changing, and now it had jumped to 90,000. They knew that as long as the number reached 99,999, the task would be completed. At this moment, Bufang was very close to completing this task. However, there was not much time left. Could Bufang really complete the remaining 9,999 wok tosses in less than a quarter of an hour? It would be very difficult. The further one went, the more difficult it was to toss the wok, because the greater the pressure on one's divine sense. The probability of failure was also very high. That was why everyone was so excited. However, the silver-masked woman was still calm. She watched quietly. No one knew what she was thinking. In the real world, Bufang's forehead was beaded with sweat. It was incredible. Clearly, Bufang's divine sense was under tremendous pressure at the moment. The star sand weighed more than 10,000 kilograms, and it was already very difficult to toss the wok. The fact that Bufang could reach his current level was already far beyond the ordinary people. Even a peak Earth divine chef could only do this. Rumble! Suddenly, under everyone's gaze, the number on the array stopped changing. It was stuck at 99,998. It stopped. Everyone's eyes widened. Almost. Move. Come on. You're about to break the record. Don't fail at the last moment. The divine chefs could not help but cheer for Bufang. Their emotions were involuntarily pulled by Bufang's behavior. They could feel that Bufang had reached his limit. It turned out that he also had a limit. Many people were in a trance. However, they were unwilling to give up. Just a little bit more. The woman's eyes were cold. She raised her jade-like palm, over which terrible divine power was surging. Once Bufang failed, she would kill Bufang with a thunderous method. She was going to vent all her anger toward Mu Hongzhi on this guy. Suddenly, the woman's eyes froze. Her heart skipped a beat. The number that had been stuck changed and jumped with a rumble. It was as if the last barrier had been broken and the last wok toss had been broken. Rumble! At this moment, the whole Divine Chef Temple began to shake. At this moment, the second seal of the inheritance shattered. The broken array turned into thousands of golden lights and poured into Bufang's head, making Bufang's eyes flash with a golden light. At this moment, his mental force, which was at the end of its flight, was wrapped up by a mass of warmth. It was as if it was soaked in a nutrient solution. Bufang's divine sense devoured them hungrily, and the strength of his divine sense kept growing stronger and stronger. He succeeded. The last change stunned everyone. A look of astonishment came over everyone's face. Some people came to their senses and looked wild with joy. The second seal of the inheritance, which had baffled countless people, was finally broken. The masked woman slowly lowered her hand and breathed a sigh of relief. She seemed to have made a solemn decision, and a smile came over her face under the mask. She raised her hand and grabbed her silver mask. Then, she gently took it off. She took off her mask, revealing a fair chin and red lips that were curled upwards. Chapter 1456. Take off the mask? The woman's movements were not big. However, it attracted everyone's attention in an instant. All the divine chefs in the Divine Chef Temple knew who she was, and they were in awe of her. The deputy lord of the Divine Chef Temple was not an ordinary position, and it was enough to attract everyone's attention. Bufang opened his eyes. His divine sense had calmed down. After absorbing the fragments, the divine ability, pot-tossing art of affliction, was deeply engraved in his mind. He automatically comprehended this divine ability. This was also the second divine ability that Bufang had comprehended. Of course, this divine ability did not belong to Bufang. Its power might not be as strong as imagined, but it was still much stronger than ordinary divine abilities. Bufang turned his head and looked at the woman behind the railing. The woman slowly took off her mask. Just her white chin alone was like a bright star in the night sky, attracting everyone's attention. The most attractive thing about a woman was her appearance. Moreover, she was a woman who wore a mask all day long. Therefore, everyone was very curious about the face under the palace master's mask. According to normal logic, a vice palace master with such a good figure would definitely not have a bad appearance. In fact, she might even be a peerless beauty. Therefore, this action of the woman in the red dress. Everyone's admiration for Bufang's record-breaking performance turned into curiosity and curiosity about his appearance. She had a fair chin and warm red lips. The curve of her red lips was perfect and enchanting, as if she had applied a seductive lipstick. Just one look at her would cause one to be deeply mesmerized. The breathing of the divine chefs became rapid. Bufang was also watching curiously. This curiosity was purely a man's instinct. Bufang was also a man. Kacha, there was a soft sound. The mask was taken off. However, everyone was in a daze and astounded. Because the woman did not have a face under the mask, or rather, he couldn't see her face clearly. It was like teleportation. That woman appeared in front of Bufang, but her clothes didn't move at all. "Congratulations on breaking the second layer of the inheritance seal," the woman said. Her voice was no longer as cold as before. Instead, it was filled with a gentle smile. This kind of chuckle had an impulse to scratch one's heart. Bufang was stunned. This woman's attitude changed too quickly. Just a moment ago, she was shouting about killing him. Now, she was smiling at him. Were all women so fickle? The corner of Bufang's mouth twitched. Nodding, Bufang stood up from the ground. He was a little tired. Although his consciousness had recovered, his physical and mental exhaustion made him want to lie down on the bed and sleep. It was an incredible feeling. Ever since Bufang became a god, he could basically ignore sleep. The woman also saw Bufang's exhaustion, and her heart stirred. With a flip of her hand, a piece of pastry appeared. The pastry looked like it was made of jade and looked extremely warm. It exuded a rich fragrance that stirred one's taste buds. Eat this and you'll feel much more energetic. This pastry is a classic delicacy of our divine chef temple. It can restore your divine sense and refresh your mind for a short time. The woman said. Bufang glanced at the pastry and twitched his mouth as if he disliked it. Bufang raised his hand and waved. No need. Bufang's refusal gave the woman pause. Then, she saw Bufang flip his hand. A steaming, flat, round pancake appeared in his hand. Bufang took a deep breath. Then, he took a bite. Slurp. With a crunching sound, Bufang rolled his tongue, and a fat oyster in the pancake was rolled out by Bufang's tongue and swallowed. A rich fragrance filled the air, and steam rose from the pancake. Bufang ate it happily. Crunch! Crunch! The woman's face froze. She looked at the pastry in her hand, then at the steaming and fragrant oyster pancake in Bufang's hand, and then put it away without batting an eyelid. I told you, if you can break the second seal, I won't kill you, and I'll even reward you. Reward? Bufang, who was eating the pancake with grease dripping from his mouth, gave the woman a puzzled look. The aroma of the pancake gushed out of his mouth and wafted over the woman's face. The woman's red lips twitched. The aroma of the pancake was really tempting. This reward. You won't be disappointed. The woman gave Bufang a deep look and smiled meaningfully. That smile made Bufang's hair stand on end. He had a feeling that this woman was up to something. There is still a third seal, but you can't break it for the time being. Unless you become an Earth Divine Chef or a Heaven Divine Chef, you won't be able to break it. However, breaking the first two is enough. Come with me, the woman said. Then, she grabbed Bufong's shoulder. With a humming sound, she pulled Bufong and disappeared. Bufong almost lost his grip on the oyster pancake. The law of space is really convenient. Bufong sighed with emotion. Then, the scene in front of him flickered, and in the next moment, Bufong appeared in a huge, circular meeting hall. In the meeting hall, there were many terrifying experts sitting cross-legged. They seemed to have sensed the woman's aura. One by one, they opened their eyes. Bufong immediately felt the gazes around him pricking him like needles. Frowning, Bufong sucked in a cold breath. The cultivation bases of these old men were very strong. Although they were not as strong as god kings, the weakest among them was a high-grade god, and they were much stronger than Emofong, who he had killed with a knife. Not to mention the other old men, whose auras were as hot as the sun. There was no doubt that these people were the trump cards of the Divine Chef Temple. This is the meeting hall of the Divine Chef Temple's elders, and the people here are the top echelons of the Divine Chef Temple. Each of them is a peak Earth Divine Chef, the woman said. Peak Earth Divine Chefs? No Heaven Divine Chefs? Bufong took a bite of the oyster pancake. With a crunch, the juice flowed out of the pancake. The woman glanced at Bufong and moved her red lips. There are very few Heaven Divine Chef. There used to be 2, but now, only the Divine Emperor's personal Imperial Chef in the Imperial Kitchen is a Heaven Divine Chef. Well, do you have any more of this pancake? Give me one, the woman said after thinking for a moment. Bufong paused. You want it? Why didn't you tell me earlier? How would I know if you didn't tell me? Bufong said. The woman looked at him indifferently. I'll give it to you. Just this once. The next time you want it, you can only come to my restaurant. It opens tomorrow. Welcome, Bufong said with an expressionless face. With a flip of his hand, he produced a steaming oyster pancake and handed it to the woman. The woman took it and took a bite impatiently. As soon as she did, her eyes flashed, and she gave Bufong a meaningful look. Very good, she said. The surrounding experts were all gray-haired old men. Elders, this boy has Mu Hongxi's jade pendant and has broken the first 2 seals of the inheritance. He is qualified enough. So, I suggest this boy inherit the position of Lord of the Divine Chef Temple. The woman took a bite of the oyster pancake, her red lips glowing. What? Bufong, who was eating the oyster pancake, almost choked. His eyes went wide. What the hell is this woman doing? She's not playing by the rules? She was trying to kill me just a moment ago, and now she wants me to inherit the position of Lord of the Divine Chef Temple? Wait a minute. Is this the gift Mu Hongxi mentioned? That guy. Is he trying to trick me again? No way. Bufong hurriedly waved his hand. He could not accept the position. Surprisingly, the elders around him did not refuse. Instead, they all nodded. Shouldn't everyone strongly refuse and protest when a stranger is asked to take over the position of Lord? What's the use of you elders? Bufong could not help complaining in his mind. He felt that he had been tricked by Mu Hongxi again. The Divine Chef Temple was a behemoth, but Bufong always felt it was a little strange. The woman raised a hand and patted Bufong on the shoulder. Don't belittle yourself. You will definitely do better than Mu Hongxi. Although you are not as handsome, good-looking, and have a lower cultivation base, you are more shameless than him, she said. Bufong was speechless. Is she praising me? No. I don't accept it. I just want to open a restaurant. I don't want to be the Lord of the Divine Chef Temple. Bufong shook his head and refused. Rumble. Terrifying auras burst out from the bodies of the elders around the circular conference hall. Their eyes were blazing as they stared at Bufong. Every single one of them was like an ancient demon god that could pierce through heaven and earth. They stared at Bufong as if they would kill Bufong if he said another word of refusal. The woman in the red dress swayed as she stood at Bufong's side. The law of space was surging in her palm. Bufong's expression remained unchanged. The position of Lord of the Divine Chef Temple is a great responsibility, and I will not shirk it, Bu Fong said seriously. After saying that, the surrounding elders immediately revealed a smile, each of them praising Bu Fong for being young, promising, and monstrous. The woman chuckled as well, and her voice tickled people's hearts. Bu Fong's expression remained unchanged, but his heart was filled with grief and indignation. These people are forcing an innocent girl into prostitution. In fact, there are many benefits to being the lord of the Divine Chef Temple. Don't you want to open a restaurant? We won't stop you, we won't restrict your freedom. The Divine Chef Temple is a free place, and we will also provide you with cultivation resources and any ingredients. The only price you have to pay is to work hard to break the seal of the ancient heaven god's inheritance, obtain the divine power in it, become a heaven divine chef, and bring glory to the Divine Chef Temple in the future. The woman said. Bu Fong frowned. He glanced at the people around him and found that they were serious. But there must be some inside story that I don't know. Bu Fong didn't want to say too much. He just wanted to open a restaurant in peace. Buzz, suddenly, a token appeared in the woman's hand. It was a token made from a special metal. It was extremely hot, but it was also filled with coldness. This is the token of the Lord of the Temple. With it, you can exercise the power of the Lord of the Temple at any time. It is made of yin-yang divine stone, which is extremely rare in the chaotic universe. It is very beneficial to your cultivation, and it is also a symbol of your identity. The woman said. Bu Fong looked at the woman with a strange look in his eyes. With such a big pie in front of me, there must be a big pit waiting for me. Bu Fong was not stupid. However, he couldn't see anything at the moment. As soon as Bu Fong accepted the token, a strange force surged in him. Bu Fong's spirit shook, and he felt that his mental force seemed to have improved a lot. This token is a good thing. Well, the handover is over. We can go back now, the woman said. All right. She nodded at the elders around her, then grabbed Bu Fong and teleported again, disappearing from where they were. When they reappeared, they were already on the sidewalk. The divine chefs walking around all looked curiously at Bu Fong and the woman. As the Lord of the Divine Chef Temple, you are qualified to know my name. My name is Summer, the Deputy Lord of the Divine Chef Temple and the younger sister of the current Divine Emperor. I will stay in the Divine Chef Temple for a month, and you can ask me any questions. After a month, I will leave, Summer said gently. If you have any questions, you can contact me through the Lord's token. After saying that last sentence, Xia Chen's figure disappeared. A god king who comprehended the law of space could come and go without a trace. Bu Fong stood where he was, lost in thought. Everything that had happened so suddenly confused him. Is all this arranged by Mu Hongzi? What does he want? Does he just want to help me? In the distance, a group of people approached slowly. Their leader was Master Ching, who was full of pride. At his side were several Earth Divine Chefs. The divine chefs in the surroundings exclaimed as soon as they appeared. Master Ching saw Bu Fong and his eyes lit up. The other Earth Divine Chefs' eyes also lit up. The eyes of the other Earth Divine Chefs lit up as well. They had finally found Bu Fong. According to the Imperial Concubine's order, if they killed Bu Fong, they would become the head chefs of the Imperial Kitchen and receive resources from the dynasty. In just a flash, the eyes of these divine chefs burst with towering killing intent. Chapter 1457. A murderous aura swept over. Bu Fong frowned slightly, raised his head, and looked into the distance. He saw a group of blazing auras sweeping past. It was a group of Earth Divine Chef. Their mighty divine senses had interwove into a terrible net. Oh! Bu Fong paused. What are these people trying to do? And their leader is an acquaintance. It was Master Ching, the guy who almost screwed him over in King Pingyang's residence. He never thought that this guy would dare to come back to the Divine Chef Temple. Didn't he run away? And he even brought a group of Earth Divine chefs with him? This is Chef Zhang. Didn't he get recruited to the Imperial Kitchen of the Empire? Why is he back in the Divine Chef Temple? That's Divine Chef Qin. He also went to the Imperial Kitchen. And Divine Chef Zhao. What kind of wind blew them back? I can't believe it. The crowd's eyes widened in disbelief. Although these proud divine chefs were famous in the Divine Chef Temple, they were mostly rooted in the Imperial Kitchen, and it was rare to see them. But today they all appeared in the Divine Chef Temple. Did something big happen? The surrounding divine chefs kept quiet out of fear. Most of them were just spirit divine chefs, and they didn't dare to be presumptuous. Suddenly, their eyes widened as they found that these Earth Divine chefs were all heading toward Bufang. Before long, they were standing in front of Bufang. Their terrible auras towered into the sky as if they were going to kill Bufang. Killing intent was released from their bodies. All the divine chefs sucked in their breath. Sure enough, something big was about to happen. The group of divine chefs was horrified. If Bufang really died here, it would be a major event that would shake the entire divine dynasty. Could these divine chefs be sent here by some expert in the imperial palace? To be able to send these divine chefs, the identity of the expert in the imperial palace must be extraordinary. Could it be the imperial concubine? Many people grew more and more frightened at the thought. If the imperial concubine attacked, Bufang would be dead for sure. Of course, some people also knew about Bufang's achievements, so they stared at the screen excitedly. Master Cheng stared at Bufang proudly. This fellow. That's right. It was this guy. He must kill him. Bufang had taken away everything that should have belonged to him, as well as that B***tch. After he killed Bufang, he would become the head chef of the Imperial Kitchen, and that B***tch from the Luo family would also have to die. You haven't escaped yet. How dare you come back? Bufang stretched himself and looked at Master Ching calmly. Doesn't this guy know that I really want to beat him up? What a scam. Master Ching smiled coldly. How dare you be so arrogant? Although Bufang could kill a high-grade god, that was only when he was at his peak. He knew about the previous battle, but how could a mere demigod keep using that kind of technique? Of course he wouldn't dare. Therefore, he was confident that he would kill Bufang this time. Besides, the Divine Chef Temple had protected Bufang once. Would it do that again? The Divine Chef Temple was not owned by Bufang. If the Imperial concubine wanted to kill him, the Divine Chef Temple would not give her face again and again, would it? Therefore, no one could save Bufang this time. Everyone, let's do it together. Whoever kills him first will get the credit. What do you say? Master Ching said, glancing at the people around him. The surrounding Earth Divine chefs all nodded with a sanctimonious look on their faces. The next moment their auras exploded out. They attacked in an instant. They turned into streams of light and rushed toward Bufang. They had shrunk Bufang's space to a very small one. They did not dare to use all their means, for fear that they would be killed by the Divine Chef Temple's top experts with a slap. However, even if they did not use their most terrifying means, they could still force Bufang to death. Not to mention the phoenix feathers provided by the Imperial concubine. As soon as the phoenix feathers appeared, Bufang would definitely die. The divine chef struck out in an instant. They never thought that these divine chefs would be so shameless as to gang up on Bufang and beat him up. Was Bufang so hateful? Bufang stood where he was. Waves of air battered his hair, making it flutter. Bufang watched indifferently. He fixed his eyes on Master Ching, who was the leader, and stared at the latter, making his hair stand on end. Xiao Jin, come out and get some fresh air. Bufang said lightly. Remember, beat that Master Ching to death for me. As soon as he finished speaking, Bufang's eyes flashed with golden light, then he let out a dragon roar and soared into the sky. Bufang's aura kept rising. Rumble! In an instant, Bufang's hair turned from black to gold, dazzling and resplendent. Behind Bufang, a golden dragon wheeled, and let out a long roar. Ah ha ha ha! Your great Nicholas the handsome dragon has come out! Blonde Bufang burst out laughing. He raised his hand and covered half of his face. Suddenly, he moved. He turned into a beam of golden light and disappeared from where he was. His golden hair waved in the wind. That gave Master Ching pause, for he found that Bufang had appeared in front of him. He threw a punch at Bufang's face. You're courting death, Master Ching roared. However, halfway through the roar, blonde Bufang grabbed his head and smashed him hard to the ground. Little host told me to serve you well, blonde Bufang grinned brightly. The surrounding divine chefs were all stunned. His blonde hair waved and flashed across the sky like a golden dragon. The seals of the divine chef's auras had all failed. Rumble! Master Ching got up from the ground. He was furious. As a mid-grade god, he was knocked to the ground by Bufang, a demigod, with just one move. This was a humiliation. Damn it! Although he knew that Bufang was very strong, he was still shocked by such a genius. However, he would not admit defeat. He still had a trick up his sleeve. Master Cheng's eyes widened. However, he had just taken a breath when blonde Bufang appeared in front of him again. The next moment, he slapped him in the face. Slash! It was as if a tooth had been thrown out of his mouth and fell to the ground. Blood gushed out of his mouth, looking extremely miserable. Master Ching howled miserably and took several steps back. Brother Ching, I'm here to help you. An Earth Divine Chef flew into a rage and came in front of Master Ching. Facing the Earth Divine Chef, blonde Bufang flipped his beautiful blonde hair, then disappeared from where he was like a dragon rising from an abyss. Then, he gave Master Cheng's butt a kick. Grinning, blonde Bufang wantonly looked insolent. Bam! 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 After a few exchanges, blonde Bufang's every move and punch landed on Master Cheng's face, causing him to have a mental breakdown. Master Ching staggered, his face swollen and bruised. He dared not put his butt down. He was filled with grief and indignation. Why are you only hitting me? The surrounding divine chefs looked at each other. They wanted to laugh, but they couldn't. An exceptional demigod indeed lives up to his reputation. He's indeed a demigod who can kill a high-grade god. I wonder what's wrong with these Earth Divine chefs? I can't believe they want to kill Bufang. Where did their courage come from? Don't you have any idea why I'm hitting you? Do you want me to tell you? I've never seen someone as shameless as you. Don't you have an accurate understanding of who you are? Blonde Bufang put his hands on his hips and kept talking. This image caused everyone to be stunned. Is this still the same cold Mr. Bu? Master Cheng's cheeks were swollen and he was furious. He was so angry that he had gone mad. He took a step forward, and his figure dashed out like a dragon. In an instant, he appeared in front of Bufang. He released all the aura in his body and used this move. It was his killing move, and it was also the reason why he came here. It was given to him by the imperial concubine. He had to kill Bufang. As long as Bufang was dead, he would be recognized by the imperial concubine, become the head chef of the imperial kitchen, and enjoy the resources of the dynasty. At that time, he would definitely live a better life than when he was in the divine chef temple. Go to hell, you little beast! Master Ching roared. A feather emerged in his hand. It was a vermilion feather, and there seemed to be flames burning on it, emanating a scorching aura. It was a phoenix. The feather disintegrated in an instant, burst into flames, and turned into a phoenix. It spread its wings and flew high, wheeling in the sky. Then, it locked onto Bufang's body. A rumble rang out. The phoenix swooped down and approached in a flash. A terrible sense of crisis spread in an instant. Blonde Bufang paused, and his golden pupils constricted. In the next moment, a divine dragon appeared on his arm. The divine dragon wriggled. A dragon roar rang out. A golden divine dragon burst out of its mouth. It was entangled with the flaming phoenix. Entangled to the end of the world. He was indeed an exceptional demigod. Even such a trick couldn't kill him in an instant. The divine chefs from the imperial kitchen all sucked in their breath. The imperial concubine had said that once the phoenix feather appeared, it could kill anyone below the high-grade god realm. Bufang was only a demigod, so how could he resist it? Let's attack together. The surrounding gods glanced at each other. Then, one flaming feather after another emerged in their hands. Rumble! Flaming feathers flew out in all directions. One phoenix after another soared into the sky, entangling in midair. Their terrible auras made blonde Bufang widen his eyes as if they were falling from the sky like meteors. Damn it! There are so many of them. I can't stand them alone. Blonde Bufang had a strange look on his face. The next moment, dragons and phoenixes were auspicious, but dragons could not stand too many phoenixes. I'd better let that old woman deal with them. Blonde Bufang's golden hair burned fiercely. Then, with a thought in his mind, his figure soared into the sky in an instant. The golden strands of hair retreated with a loud rumble, turning into a scarlet color. Red-haired Bufang had shown up. As soon as Bufang appeared, he pinched his middle finger and sneered. How dare a coquettish bitch's feathers show off in front of me? Red-haired Bufang was cold and arrogant. He pinched his thumb and middle finger and flicked it. The vermilion robe on his body suddenly released a scorching flame, and the flames swept across. It hovered behind Bufang. Soon, it turned into a vermilion bird that spiraled into the sky. When the flames collided with the vermilion bird, they seemed to be devoured and merged into the vermilion bird. The flames flourished, and their might became even more terrifying. The red-haired Bufang was pinching an orchid. Staring at the group of dumbfounded divine chefs, he sneered. The next moment, a loud and clear bird cry rang out. The huge vermilion bird rushed toward the divine chefs down below. All coquettish sluts must die. No, 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 you can't kill me. I'm an Earth Divine Chef of the Divine Chef Temple. I'm the Divine Chef of the Imperial Kitchen. I'm the Imperial Concubine's Divine Chef. How dare you? The eyes of the group of divine chefs almost popped out of their sockets, and their hearts trembled with fear. They felt that death was approaching. The vermilion bird descended, and the might of its phoenix feathers swept out with a loud rumble. Chapter 1458. Rumble. A terrible rumble rang out, destroying everything in an instant. The red-haired Bufang's eyes were blazing, as if he had turned into a vermilion bird that soared down from the sky. The vermilion feathers on its body were burning, emitting an unparalleled scorching heat. The power he had absorbed from those phoenix feathers was all thrown back at him. The vermilion bird and the phoenix were different species. There were many kinds of phoenixes, but there was only one vermilion bird. Also known as the vermilion bird, the vermilion bird was a heavenly spirit beast, even rarer than the phoenix. In fact, the vermilion bird was more noble than the phoenix. However, people often confused the vermilion bird with the phoenix and put them together. They even thought that the phoenix was more noble than the vermilion bird. Of course, some people said that the vermilion bird was the fire phoenix, the noble of the phoenixes, the purest bloodline. Bufang didn't know that much. Bufang only knew that when these divine chefs took out the phoenix feathers, Mulberry's angry look was like a volcano that was about to erupt. She was very irritable. The golden divine dragon, on the other hand, was gloating. That was why he gave up the possession and let the vermilion bird out without Bufang's consent. He was an earth divine chef with the cultivation base of a mid-grade god. However, under the scorching vermilion bird flame, it turned into ashes in an instant. The vermilion bird flame wasn't any weaker than Bufang's divine flame. Moreover, after fusing with the power of the phoenix flame feather, its power was even more extraordinary. Bam! Bam! Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the few divine chefs were burned to ashes in an instant. Master Cheng wanted to fight back. His eyes were wide and full of resentment. He didn't expect that this would be the day of his death. He thought it was his chance to retaliate against Bufang. He had the imperial concubine's support. He never thought that he would be completely wiped out by Bufang this time. He hated him. Not only did he hate Bufang, but he also hated the imperial concubine. He didn't want to cause trouble for Bufang. He had fled far away, but because of the imperial concubine, he came back to die. These people deserve to die. That damned bitch! Along with a miserable howl, his soul crumbled. The vermilion bird's flames burned his soul into ashes. He completely disappeared from the chaosverse. Boomla in the void. The red-haired Bufang snorted proudly with his fingers pinched together. He lovingly patted the vermilion robe on his body, and in the next moment, he slowly landed on the ground. Buzz suddenly. It was the spot where the divine chefs had fallen. The remains of a phoenix feather floated up and slowly burned. It was as if a supreme power was bursting out from it. He wanted to destroy the world. A terrifying power blotted out the sky. A graceful and luxurious figure emerged. The figure stared at Bufang. "How dare you? Killing is second nature to you. When you see me, why don't you kneel?" The noble voice seemed to descend from the 9 heavens. It was so loud that it could shatter one's eardrums. Behind this figure, there seemed to be flames condensing into the silhouette of a phoenix, circling behind her. With a crashing sound, everyone knelt on the ground with fear on their faces. They all recognized the owner of the voice. The current imperial concubine had a noble status and was a motherly figure. She was the mother of the current crown prince. The red-haired Bufang narrowed his eyes and crossed his arms over his chest. He lifted one of his hands and pointed his index finger at his lips, looking very charming. "You coquettish bitch, why should I kneel to you?" the red-haired Bufang said. The crowd was dumbfounded. Is Mr. Bu crazy? Or had he lost his mind? Why did she call herself Laonyang? Was this Mr. Bu's true nature? Oh my God, it was too exciting. The surrounding people felt as if they had discovered a new continent. "How dare you? Insulting this empress is a crime deserving of 10,000 deaths. You killed my nephew, so you deserve to be hacked into pieces," the imperial concubine said coldly. "What crime? Do you really think you're a vermilion bird just because you're wearing a phoenix feather? In front of me, you're a coquettish bitch." The red-haired Bufang was instantly displeased. He put his hands on his hips and raised his palms, shouting at the imperial concubine's phantom image like a shrew cursing in the street. It was as if he would start cursing at the slightest sign of trouble. However, without waiting for the red-haired Bufang to continue cursing, his body trembled. His red hair immediately faded and turned pitch black. His originally excited face became expressionless once again. The corner of Bufang's mouth twitched. What stupid thing did he do? Was he cursing in the street like a shrew? Bufang glanced at the crowd, who had their eyes wide open and were extremely shocked. He felt that he had been completely humiliated. The imperial concubine, right? Bufang looked at the phantom image of the imperial concubine and the phoenix behind her and said calmly. Buzz, the imperial concubine's figure seemed to be angered by the red-haired Bufang. At this moment, she was trembling. Suddenly, the void was torn apart. A figure stepped out of the void and pointed a finger at the phantom image of the imperial concubine. With a burst of distortion, the phantom image of the imperial concubine collapsed, and she disappeared halfway through her words. Disgusting woman. Summer had appeared in the sky at some point. She played with her fingers and twitched her mouth in disgust. The surrounding people were stunned. That was the imperial concubine, and yet she was blown up by the Vice Palace Lord with just a finger. Wasn't the Vice Palace Lord afraid of the divine emperor's blame? Wasn't he afraid that the imperial concubine would fly into a rage out of humiliation? Wasn't he afraid that the imperial concubine would attack the divine chef temple? You shouldn't have said so much to this bitch. You did a good job cursing her just now. This kind of coquettish bitch deserves to be cursed. As the palace lord of the divine chef temple, you should be so domineering, Summer said. Bufang was speechless. Is this woman serious? It was embarrassing for a shrew to curse in the street, anyway, that was what Bufang thought. He simply ignored Summer. However, the woman's domineering attitude did shock Bufang. This woman is the princess of the dynasty, the emperor's younger sister, and yet she doesn't have a good impression of the imperial concubine. This is a little strange. It seems there must be some unknown secret behind it. Bufang was suddenly a little curious. This woman is from the Mo family. You killed Mo Hen of the Mo family, who is her most beloved nephew. I'm afraid you will be in danger next, but it's okay. With your identity, I'd like to see who dares to touch you, Summer said, putting her hands on her hip. Bufang was a little speechless. He felt that Summer had been influenced by him just now. Why was she imitating the vermilion bird when she spoke? Summer left. She had mastered the spatial array, so she could come and go freely. In just a flash she disappeared. Bufang cleared his throat and said, "That's right. What you saw just now is fake," Bufang said seriously to the divine chefs around him. The divine chefs quickly waved their hands, nodded, and said yes. Bufang was very satisfied with their attitude. With his hands clasped behind his back, he walked toward his luxurious room. In just a few moments he disappeared. After Bufang disappeared, the surrounding divine chefs all sucked in their breaths and burst into an uproar. Good heavens! Mr. Bu turns out to be a sissy. That cold and arrogant look is all an act. Look at how charming he is. If Mr. Bu is a woman, he must be a peerless beauty. The surrounding divine chefs talked among themselves, and their faces were full of mischievous smiles. To these Bufang didn't know, and he didn't bother to know. In the imperial palace, a crazy roar rang out, so sharp that it seemed to tear the sky apart. That damned slut! You actually dared to destroy this consort's clone. Who gave her the guts? The imperial concubine was so furious that her beautiful face became somewhat distorted. There was a look of madness in her eyes. Go! Call silver armor over! Go now! The imperial concubine roared. The surrounding eunuchs and maids were already scared out of their wits. Some eunuchs scrambled out of the side hall. Before long, a man clad in silver armor, even his face was covered in silver armor, clanged his way in. When the imperial concubine saw silver armor, the ferocious look on her face faded a lot, and she became much gentler. Silver armor, bring 3,000 imperial guards and destroy the divine chef temple. This power doesn't need to exist anymore, the imperial concubine said in a crazy tone. Silver armor sighed and shook his head. Imperial concubine. Without the divine emperor's order, I can't act on my own, he said in a gentle and gentlemanly voice. I order you. The imperial concubine's eyes grew stern. Silver armor shook his head, and the way he looked at her became much gentler. I dare not disobey your imperial concubine's order, but I can't attack the divine chef temple. However, if it's just to kill that little chef, it's not impossible, Silver armor said. I've found out that the little chef has opened a restaurant in the Luo family's skyscraper. The restaurant is about to open for business, so he will surely walk out of the divine chef temple and go there. When that time comes, we'll send troops there to capture him. We won't provoke the divine chef temple, and we won't violate the divine emperor's order. Silver armor bowed slightly, but what he said made the imperial concubine's eyes lit up. The imperial concubine moved slowly, dragging her long dress from the top of the great hall to the bottom. Then, I'll do as you say. Let silver armor help me get rid of the knot in my heart. The imperial concubine smiled gently, and in a flash, the whole great hall was overshadowed. In that instant, her beauty was peerless and unparalleled. Silver Armor's face was a little dazed. Looking at the beautiful face that was so close to him, he seemed to recall the young face he once knew. His face under the mask became very gentle. "Don't worry, your imperial concubine. Leave everything to me. Anyone who makes you unhappy will die." In a luxurious room, Bu Fang rested for the night. His divine sense had been fully nourished. When he opened his eyes, there seemed to be a golden light swirling in them. Bu Fang could feel the strengthening of his body and divine sense. Although the walk-tossing art of affliction was dangerous for Bu Fang, the final result was good. Not only did he comprehend the divine power, but he also improved the strength of his divine sense. Now, Bu Fang's divine sense was comparable to that of an expert who had just stepped into the realm of a high-grade god. This was a very genius. As everyone knew, the power of divine sense was related to the power of the laws. The stronger the laws one comprehended, the stronger the divine sense would be. The more laws one comprehended, the stronger the divine sense would be. Bu Fang's current divine sense was comparable to that of an existence who had comprehended two supreme laws of the universe. He exhaled softly. Bu Fang raised his hand. A golden light swirled in his palm. It was the highly condensed power of his divine sense. A tangible divine sense was extraordinary. He dispersed his divine sense. Bu Fang stood up from his seat. "It's time to open the shop and receive the system's mission reward," with a thought, Bu Fang exhaled. Of course, before that, Bu Fang needed to release you and the others. His mind flickered. You, Hades' era, and the others, who had been kept in the heaven and earth farmland, were immediately released. As soon as you appeared, her eyes were fixed on Bu Fang. Chapter 1459. Staying in the heaven and earth farmland was, in fact, a kind of torture. You didn't know what was happening outside. It was a kind of unknown confusion and fear. She knew that Bu Fang had to face the entire Mo family, which was too powerful. The aura released by any one of them could make her feel frightened, so she was a little worried about Bu Fang. Fortunately, Bu Fang was fine. After coming out of the heaven and earth farmland and seeing that Bu Fang was safe and sound, you heaved a long sigh of relief. This experience made you feel the importance of strength. If she had enough strength, she would be able to help Bu Fang. "Oh, Bu Fang, young man, it's great to see that you're fine." As soon as Hades' era appeared, he howled and rushed over, hugging Bu Fang, wailing like a ghost and howling like a wolf. Bu Fang was speechless. It seemed that this guy ate well and slept well in the heaven and earth farmland. Now that he came out, he was so energetic. "It's okay. Everything's settled," Bu Fang said lightly. He looked at you, a puzzled look in his eyes. "You're here, but where's the Lord Go? Where's little Hu?" The Lord Go. You and Hades' era looked at each other and saw the helplessness in each other's eyes. "We don't know. In the process of crossing the void, we were separated from the Lord Go. We don't know where the Lord Go went," you said. "If the Lord Go had been by their side, they would not have been so miserable this time." After all, the Lord Go was a god who had comprehended the supreme law of the universe. His fighting capacity should be comparable to that of a high-grade god. After the Lord Go and Little Who were separated, no one knew where they went. Bu Fang fell silent. However, he wasn't too worried. The Lord Go was strong enough to protect himself. Of course, with the Lord Go's character, he might be doing very well right now. He exhaled softly. The corners of Bu Fang's mouth curled up. "All right, I've opened a restaurant in the capital, and I'm going to open it now. Today's the first day of business. Come with me," Bu Fang said. "From now on, you can cultivate in the Divine Chef Temple. Resources will be delivered to you on time. Work hard and try to break through the God realm as soon as possible. Only then will you have the power to protect yourself." Bu Fang looked at you and said. As for Hades' era, that guy's strength was still far from being able to compete with him. The two of them nodded. As for Hua, he was cultivating diligently in the heaven and earth farmland. What happened this time also gave her a great shock. Bufang led the two of them out of the luxurious room and walked along the main street of the Divine Chef Temple. When the surrounding divine chefs saw Bufang, they all had strange looks on their faces and pointed at Bufang. Bufang's face did not blush, and his heart did not skip a beat. He was very calm. Yu and Hades' era gave Bufang a suspicious look. Why were these people looking at Bufang like that? Had something happened that they didn't know? The three of them left the Divine Chef Temple. Bufang waved his hand and a warship emerged. It was given to him by Summer, who said it was a benefit for the palace lord. Bufang naturally would not refuse. The warship was luxurious, even more so than Luo Sanyang's. Hades' era was stunned. He looked around the warship like a bumpkin. He touched it here and there. He never thought that there would be such a luxurious warship in the world. Yu was also a little surprised. These warships were somewhat similar to her netherworld ship, but they were much more luxurious. Bufang sat in the main seat. With a thought, one array after another emerged. With a thought, Bufang's divine sense surged, and he carved the gourmet array into it. It was a small modification to the warship. Sit tight. Bufang glanced at Hades' era and Yu. Nethery nodded and sat on her seat. Hades' era, on the other hand, did not mind. He touched the soft material in the warship. The corner of Bufang's mouth twitched. The next moment, with a thought, he activated the formation. Rumble! A blast burst out of the warship. The warship turned into a straight shooting star and shot forward. Accompanied by a rumble, it sped away in a flash. Inside the warship, the inertia caused by the sudden movement of the warship made Hades' era's face hit the warship. It was an intimate contact with the soft material. Bufang liked the feeling of driving the warship. The blood of an experienced driver in him seemed to be boiling in the process. In the capital, all kinds of tall buildings rose from the ground. It was very spectacular. There were all kinds of warships flying in the sky. Of course, in addition to the warships, there were also dragon carriages and chariot. These were the means of transportation in the capital of the Divine Dynasty. Nethery watched everything through the warship's window, and she was fascinated by it. In the warship, Hades' era was bumping left and right like a ball. He kept hitting the walls of the warship. His face was bruised and swollen in a short while. How could he be so miserable? Slow down. Slow down. Hades' era was begging for mercy. However, Bufang controlled it expressionlessly. The warship's exhaust spewed out as it swayed in the air at an extremely fast speed. The scene was changing rapidly and the world was spinning. Hades' era felt his stomach churn. His eyes widened as he tried to resist the feeling of seasickness. Yu was fine. It was mainly because she was sitting in a seat that she didn't suffer that kind of turbulence. After a long time, the warship became stable, moving slowly. It stopped at the berth. Bufang brought you off the warship. In the warship, Hades' era crawled out like a pile of mud. He no longer felt the novelty at the beginning. He even had an inexplicable fear of the warship. It was too scary. The shop is above this tall building. Bufang clasped his hands behind his back, raising his head to look at the top floor of the building. Nethery and Nether King Erha also had awe in their eyes. Bufang led the two of them into the building. As soon as they entered, many people in the building turned to look at Bufang. What? Bufang was a little surprised. He seemed to feel a faint hostility. This hostility made Bufang frown. Of course, he didn't pay much attention to it. Bufang used the array to go to the top floor. The door of the restaurant was closed. Bufang opened the door. With a squeak, he stepped in. The new and gorgeous decoration made Yu and Hades' era sigh in admiration. A sense of familiarity rose in their hearts. Indeed, Bufang's restaurant made them feel comfortable. Opening the door of the restaurant meant that it could be opened for business. However, since it was the first time he opened the restaurant, there weren't any customers yet. Hence, Bufang was a little bored. He pulled a chair over and placed it in front of the floor-to-ceiling window. Then, he lay on the chair, looking at the scenery outside the building through the window. Bufang, young man, the location of the restaurant you chose this time is really great. I'm fascinated by the scenery. Hades' era lay in front of the floor-to-ceiling window and had a panoramic view of the Divine Dynasty's capital. The scenery outside was filled with neon lights and all kinds of colors. Warships and dragon carriages were speeding along. Clouds were rising. The restaurant opened quietly. It was done quietly, and there was no publicity, so not many people knew about it. You sat quietly in her seat, enjoying the silence of the restaurant and feeling calm inside. Of course, there were people who paid attention to the opening of the restaurant. Some people wandering in the building narrowed their eyes. The next moment they all fled. They spread the news. Nowadays, Bufang's identity was well known in the Divine Dynasty's capital. He was a top expert among the demigod. With the strength of a demigod, he could fight and even kill a high-grade god. He had comprehended a divine ability, and his fighting prowess was outstanding. He had single-handedly destroyed the Mo family. It made the imperial concubine furious. All these achievements had raised Bufang's status. Now, some people even compared Bufang to the crown prince. He was the son of the divine emperor, the crown prince of the divine dynasty, and the strongest genius. At the age of less than 100 years, he had comprehended two supreme laws of the universe. No one knew how strong the crown prince of the demigod realm was, but he should have no problem fighting a high-grade god. Soon, Luo Sanyang learned that Bufang had opened a restaurant. Although she was forbidden from entering the divine chef temple, she was still allowed to walk in the divine dynasty. Therefore, she called a group of her sisters and rushed to the Luo family's building. As soon as they entered the building, they ran toward the restaurant. It was not just her. Many people in the capital had heard the news as well. They sneered, thinking that Bufang was courting death. He dared to walk out of the restaurant at such a sensitive time. Wasn't he afraid that the imperial concubine would kill him? Hu Lu, the young master of Tranquil Sun Mansion, also called a guard, boarded a warship, and left the mansion for the restaurant. Of course, more people were waiting for Bufang to make a fool of himself with a gloating attitude. Bufang had left the divine chef temple. He had offended so many people, and he would not be let off easily. At least, the Mo family would not spare him. Mo Pao, the head of the Mo family, had left the residence and entered the ancient heaven god's relic. He had come out in a hurry, and the matter in the relic was very important. Especially that damned black dog. Many experts were thrown into a state of chaos. For a moment, the weather in the Divine Dynasty's capital changed. Many experts were secretly paying attention to the restaurant that had just opened. In the Divine Chef Temple, after changing into a new set of clothes, Xia Xia walked out with long legs. She pursed her red lips slightly, savoring the delicious oyster pancake. With a thought, she walked toward the Luo family's skyscraper. With one step, she tore through the void and came in front of the building. She remembered that Bufang had told her that if she wanted to eat oyster pancakes again, she could only go to Bufang's restaurant. So, she was here now. In the imperial palace, the imperial concubine sat on a high seat, narrowing her eyes as a cold smile came over the corners of her mouth. Silver Armor was right. I can't believe this boy really dares to come out and open a restaurant. He's completely looking down on me. I can't do anything to you in the Divine Chef Temple, but do you think you can overturn the heavens outside? The imperial concubine's aura fluctuated and was extremely terrifying. Silver Armor, who was standing beside her, smiled warmly as well. Then, his figure slowly disappeared. In the imperial palace, dozens of Silver Armor guards received the order, left the palace, and went straight to the Luo family's skyscraper. In the restaurant, the sound of birds chirping rang through the air. Xiao Bai stood at the door of the kitchen, scratching his head. His mechanical eyes kept flashing. Bu Fang was cooking in the kitchen, and the aroma of his dishes kept wafting out. Today was the opening day, and Bu Fang was cooking personally. He wanted to cook dishes that satisfied people. In the Divine Dynasty's capital, the competition was very fierce. If Bu Fang's dishes could not attract diners, it would be difficult for him to compete with the restaurants of those Earth Divine chefs. In the kitchen, Bu Fang was studying a new dish. Outside the kitchen, however, the atmosphere was somewhat stagnant. Luo Sanyang sat in her seat, crossing one of her long, fair legs over the other, forming a shocking curve. She crossed her arms over her chest and narrowed her eyes. She was staring at the cold, breathtakingly beautiful woman in a long black dress and light makeup at the next table. Luo Sanyang was looking at you, and you was looking at Luo Sanyang. There seemed to be silent sparks colliding in the air, producing rumbling noises. Hades' era was like a fish in water, chatting with these rich girls. However, from time to time, Hades' era would glance sideways at you and Luo Sanyang. It seemed that something big was about to happen. Chapter 1460. Sizzle, he tossed the wok, and the ingredients in it flew into the air. Flames burst out of the wok, and with a rumble, the wok seemed to explode. Bu Fang grabbed the wok with one hand and knocked it against the stove, producing a clanging sound. Bu Fang was very good at tossing the wok now, and he could do it perfectly even with his eyes closed. Every time he tossed the wok, the dish in it would tumble up, glowing brilliantly and looking very beautiful. Steam rose from the wok. Bu Fang poured the dish into a blue and white porcelain plate, and it immediately surged with a strange power. In the Divine Dynasty, it was already very difficult for ordinary dishes to trigger the lightning punishment, so he was not surprised. After all, the capital of the Divine Dynasty was a great world, and the will of the great path of a great world was much stronger than that of a small world. To trigger a lightning punishment, the dish of a Heaven Divine chef must be of very high quality. Perhaps a Heaven Divine chef's dish could trigger a lightning punishment. Summer once said that there were 2 Heaven Divine chefs in the Divine Dynasty. One of them was the Heaven Divine chef of the Imperial Kitchen, the personal Divine chef of the Divine Emperor. His status was noble and supreme. The other one, however, no longer existed. According to Summer's resentment when she said that, it was most likely Mu Hongzi, who went to the netherworld to be a landlord. That fellow was the previous host, and according to his strength, he was likely to be another Heaven Divine chef. However, according to Mu Hongzi's words, as a Heaven Divine chef, he was still at the level where he failed to break through to the God of Cooking realm. This meant that the God of Cooking described by the system should be stronger than a Heaven Divine chef. As for what realm that was, Bu Fang was curious. Then, he placed the first dish on the side. On the other side, he cleaned the black turtle constellation wok. Then, with a flick of his finger, he ignited the divine flame. The oil in the wok began to boil, rolling and emitting scorching heat. While the wok was being heated, Bu Fang began to prepare the ingredients. Tap, tap, tap. He cut the ingredients with the kitchen knife, his movements precise and unhurried. Sometimes, cooking was a baptism of the soul. Bu Fang was very intoxicated with the feeling of cooking. He took out a ladle. The ladle was flat. Now, the ladle was smeared with oil and the rice milk was poured into the ladle. Then, the chopped ingredients were piled on top of the ladle, and a layer of rice milk was poured over the piled ingredients to wrap them. After he was done, he placed the ladle into the oil pan. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The moment it entered the wok of oil, it began to splash. Steam began to rise from the ingredient. With a shake of Bu Fang's hand, the oyster pancake immediately left the wok and floated in the wok, slowly boiling in the oil. Bu Fang was already very familiar with making oyster pancake. However, as his cultivation level increased, His oyster pancake production also became more profound. Of course, this was because of the ingredients, which caused the oyster pancake's grade to continuously rise. Back then, it was only a very simple dish. But now, it was comparable to a divine dish. Just one mouthful was enough to increase the recovery of one's spiritual sense and energy very quickly. Looking at the oyster pancakes floating in the wok, Bufang suddenly fell into silence. His eyes lit up and he thought of another dish. This dish had the same effect as the oyster pancake, but it was different. Bufang considered cooking this dish after he finished making the oyster pancake. After draining the oil, Bufang fished out the oyster pancake. Bufang began to busy himself. Buddha jumps over the wall soup, boiled fish, stone wok fish, and other delicacies were all presented by Bufang at a moderate pace. There was also the dry pot cabbage that had blown up the Mo family's house. This dish was ordered by Luo Sanyang. This woman, who liked excitement, after finishing the dishes ordered by the women outside, Bufang carried the dishes and walked outside. He lifted the curtain of the kitchen, and the ringing of the bell resounded continuously. In the restaurant, everyone's gaze shifted over. Bufang and Xiao Bai walked out of the kitchen with the dishes in their hands. Those noisy women were attracted by the aroma of the dishes in the air, which was too fragrant. Moreover, when they saw the colorful dishes in Bufang's hands, they were all pleasantly surprised. Apart from delicious food, those cold drinks and desserts were what attracted them the most. Even Luo Sanyang, who was staring at Nethery, was captivated. It was the first time she had seen such delicacies. Buddha jumps over the wall soup, stone wok fish, boiled fish. Here's the matcha ice cream and cream cake that you wanted. Here's your spicy crayfish. Be careful. Bufang distributed the dishes one by one. Luo Sanyang ordered the dry pot cabbage and the Buddha jumps over the wall soup. She looked at Bufang, then opened the lid of the Buddha jumps over the wall soup. Instantly, a golden light diffused, and the rich aroma attracted her. This, Luo Sanyang swallowed her saliva, and her appetite was greatly increased. She took a deep breath and began to dig in. Bufang was only a spirit divine chef, but the dishes he cooked tasted as good as those of earth divine chefs. Moreover, they all had their own characteristics, which made them much more fun and delicious than the rigid dishes of those earth divine chefs. Looking at her best friend next door enjoying her ice cream, she felt a little longing. Bufang walked up to the woman with a bowl of oyster pancake in his hand. The woman was elegant and her face looked ordinary, but no one could remember her at first glance. Bufang paused. He found the woman somewhat familiar. Summer? Bufang asked. However, the woman did not answer Bufang. Instead, she took the oyster pancake from Bufang's hand. She grabbed it with her slender hand, put it in her mouth, and bit it, ignoring the heat and the oil. With a crunch, the delicious taste spread, and the rich aroma spread. The woman's eyes curved slightly, and the corners of her mouth curved upward. There was no doubt that this woman was Summer. However, Bufang did not expect her to come to dinner with a different face. Shaking his head, Bufang walked back to the kitchen. Mr. Bu, congratulations on your opening. Just as Bufang turned around, a burst of hearty laughter rang out. The young master strode in with a gentle smile on his face. Bufang turned and nodded at the young master. He and the young master had gotten to know each other through fighting. Have a seat. What would you like to eat? The menu is on the wall behind you, Bufang said, twitching the corner of his mouth. Haha, I came here to congratulate Mr. Bu on your opening, but now that the aroma has aroused my appetite, I'd like to taste your cooking. Young Lord Hulu took a deep breath and said. Then, he sat down and looked at the menu. Oh, what is this ice cream? It's what that woman eats. Bufang raised a hand and pointed at the woman in the distance, who was licking the ice cream with her tongue. She was a daughter of a prominent family in the Divine Dynasty's capital, a good friend of Luo Sanyang. It was said that she was the daughter of a high-ranking official. She was a lady from a prominent family, but the way she ate at the moment was a little creepy. The young master twitched the corner of his mouth when he saw her. It looks delicious. I'll have one for I. Also, Mr. Boo, recommend a dish to I so that I can have a good meal. After this meal, I will go into seclusion. I don't know how long it will take, but when I come out, I may already be a god, the young master said. Bufang nodded. He needed to have a good meal before going into seclusion. Bufang paused, then nodded. After thinking for a while, he went into the kitchen. Before long, he came out with an ice cream and a spicy blood lobster. One was ice cream and the other was spicy blood lobster. The two delicacies seemed to conflict with each other. Eating the spicy blood lobster and then ice cream, that feeling was inexplicably a little strange. If Bufang wanted to have a good meal, he would let him have one. He wanted to feel the pleasure of ice and fire. Bufang grabbed a blood lobster and demonstrated how to eat it. The young master's eyes lit up, and he copied Bufang's method of peeling a blood lobster and shoving it into his mouth. The softness in his mouth made his pupils constrict. The hot spiciness exploded in his mouth, making him feel as if his whole body was on fire. It was a very refreshing feeling. He licked the ice cream. Then, he licked it with his tongue, which was so hot that it seemed to be burning. It was like an iceberg was pressing against his face. The feeling instantly suppressed the heat on his tongue. It was an unparalleled feeling. It made the young master shudder all over. That feeling, there were two words to describe it. It was exciting. It was as if a song about ice and fire was playing in his head. Watching the young master eat the spicy blood lobster and the ice cream, Bufang could not help but twitch the corner of his mouth. Suddenly, a background music emerged in his mind. Summer, summer passed quietly, leaving a little secret in the bottom of my heart. I can't tell you. Bufang shook his head with a strange look on his face. What the hell? Have I been infected by Mu Hongzi? Bufang had a strange look on his face as he imagined the young master holding the ice cream in one hand and the blood lobster in the other, swaying his hips to the music with an intoxicated look on his face. Bufang left. In the distance, Luo Sanyang beckoned at him. Bufang walked over. On the other side, Yu's eyes flashed as she stared at Bufang. Luo Sanyang rose to her feet. Her voluptuous figure was very attractive. She leaned close to Bufang's ear and breathed out, accompanied by the fragrance of the Buddha jumps over the wall soup. She panted softly and said, Bufang? I want ice cream. When Luo Sanyang said that, her eyes drifted to Nethery, and the corners of her mouth curved upward slightly. Yu was expressionless. Bufang gave her a strange look. We're on the same side. Speak properly. Luo Sanyang was speechless. Bufang turned and went into the kitchen. A moment later, he came out with an ice cream and handed it to her. The atmosphere in the restaurant was a little hot. The scene attracted many customers in the mall. Filled with curiosity, they stepped into the restaurant. Then, he was attracted by the atmosphere of the restaurant. After ordering and eating the dishes, he couldn't help but be intoxicated by it. They accepted the source stone. The corners of Bufang's mouth curled up slightly. He was a little excited. He could finally open the restaurant again. Now, as long as the turnover reached a certain level, he could make a breakthrough. From then on, he would reach the peak of his life and be one step closer to his dream of becoming the god of cooking. Buzz, all of a sudden, the system's serious voice rang in Bufang's mind. It was a voice he hadn't heard for a long time. Congratulations on completing the temporary task, host. The temporary task reward will now be issued. Please check and receive. Bufang's eyes lit up. The system's reward buzz in his mind. At some point in time, 2 more divine power liquid drops had appeared on the God of Cooking's menu, which was originally empty. The perfectly round divine power liquid droplet was spinning, giving off divine light. In addition, a familiar fruit emerged in Bufang's mind. A 7-colored fruit of law hovered in the air. A fruit of law, a familiar fruit of law. Just as Bufang was immersed in the thought of the reward, outside the restaurant, the customers who were watching curiously immediately panicked. A clanging sound rang out. Several figures slowly walked over. They blocked the entrance of the restaurant. A terrible aura filled the air. These experts were all clad in silver armor with the word silver printed on their chests. Their auras fluctuated violently. The surrounding customers fled in panic. The silver armor guards of the Imperial Guard. The silver armor guards are on official business. Unauthorized personnel, please leave now, the leading expert of the silver armor guards said coldly. His eyes were cold and merciless. As soon as his voice rang out, a commotion broke out in the restaurant. The expressions of Luo Sanyang and the others changed. The silver armor guards are here? Is the imperial concubine going against the divine emperor's order? Chapter 1461. The Silver Armor Guards? The expressions of all the people in the restaurant changed dramatically. They were the imperial guards of the palace, existences a level higher than the capital's guards, and yet they had come here themselves. The people present were all of high status, so they quickly figured out what was going on. There was no doubt that the silver armor guards were the imperial concubine's men. Black armor, silver armor, and gold armor were the divine emperor's 3 imperial guards, and they were as strong as the heads of aristocratic families. Moreover, silver armor and the imperial concubine had a very close relationship. This made the crowd think of many things. What should Owner Bu do now? Each of these silver armor guards was a mid-grade god, and their commander was a high-grade god. As the imperial guards of the palace, although they were not many in number, they were extremely strong. The top floor of the skyscraper was almost cleared, leaving only the silver armor guards to surround the restaurant. Although the skyscraper belonged to the Luo family, the silver armor guards did not care about it at all. They surrounded the restaurant unscrupulously. The young master rose from his seat, frowning. He had a good impression of Bufang now. Bufang was strong and could cook well. He was naturally happy to have such a friend. However, he also felt that the silver armor guards were being a little too aggressive. The divine emperor had given the order not to dwell on this matter, but the silver armor guards surrounded the restaurant at this moment. This showed that they did not take the divine emperor's order seriously. Tap, 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 the commander of the silver-armored army slowly stepped into the restaurant. Clad in silver armor, he clasped his hands behind his back and exuded a strong murderous aura. They were all veterans of hundreds of battles and had been tempered by blood, so their aura was much stronger than that of ordinary guards. "Can you give me some face? Mr. Bu is my young master's friend," Mr. Bu said. The young master licked the juice of the spicy blood lobster on his finger, stood up, and looked at the commander. The commander clasped his hands behind his back and turned to look at the young master with an indifferent expression. A hint of a smile came over his face. "Young master, are you going to stop the silver armor guards from doing something?" The commander said indifferently, his eyes cold. The young master froze for a moment, then he furrowed his brows as if he was angry. "Lord Silver Armor ordered us to capture that chef and bring him back to the palace. This is not only Lord Silver Armor's order, but also the Imperial Concubine's order. Do you dare to go against the Imperial Concubine's order?" The commander looked down at the young master. He was a high-grade god. His aura was extremely strong. Even though the young master was a demigod, he was not afraid of him at all. The young master's face darkened. This was not giving him any face at all. Boom! The young master's aura surged, and the law of destruction floated above his head, exuding a terrifying aura. "The silver-armored army is really impressive," the young master sneered. Luo Sanyang also stood up with a serious expression. The imperial concubine was going to kill them all. It seemed that Mo Hen's position in the imperial concubine's heart was really important. Of course, the imperial concubine might just be trying to regain her lost face. Don't force us to do it, my lord. The price is not something you can bear. Even King Pingyang may not be able to bear it. The silver-armored commander was still sneering. His sneer irritated the young master even more. In the restaurant, Bufang, who was checking the system's rewards, came to his senses with a flash in his eyes. He looked outside with a straight face. The noise outside had naturally attracted Bufang's attention. With his hands clasped behind his back, he walked out with an indifferent face. He saw the silver-armored army. There were a dozen mid-grade gods and one high-grade god. Their aura fluctuated as if enveloping the whole building in a mighty pressure. The silver-armored army had come with ill intentions. In the distance, the people from the Luo family had arrived. My lady, the patriarch has asked you to return to the family. A member of the Luo family said to Luo Sanyang, glancing at the silver-armored army with fear. Luo Sanyang, on the other hand, bit her lip and glared at the newcomer. Go back and tell my father that I, Luo Sanyang, am determined to get involved in this matter today, she said. The Luo family's faces flickered. Humph! How dare you? The commander of the silver-armored army sneered, glanced at Luo Sanyang, and let out a loud shout. His terrible voice exploded like a thunderclap, lingering in the air, and making everyone's eardrums feel as if they were about to burst. The pressure of a high-grade god enveloped the whole place. The commander of the silver-armored guards was much stronger than Mo Feng. He should have comprehended more than 50 laws as well. Such strength was indeed not something that Mo Feng and the others could compare with. The young master took a step forward, his face cold and indifferent. As for Luo Sanyang's best friends, they were all cowering in a corner in fear. They did not have the confidence to act presumptuously in the face of the silver-armored army. The young master and Luo Sanyang had extraordinary identities. The former was the young master of King Pingyang's mansion, and the latter was the daughter of the Luo family. Their identities were more distinguished than theirs. They did not have the confidence to fight against the silver-armored army. In that case, don't blame me for being rude. His Excellency Silver Armor has said that anyone who disobeys will be killed without mercy. Rumble. As soon as the commander's voice rang out, his aura suddenly exploded out. His eyes seemed to burst into silver light. In a flash, he attacked. His aura was as strong as a dragon's. However, just as he was about to make his move, a faint voice rang out from the restaurant. I dare you to make a move here. Bufang's thin figure slowly walked out of the restaurant, his hands clasped behind his back, his face indifferent. The commander's pupils constricted. Bufang is the man I've been looking for. I've finally found you. His Excellency Silver Armor has ordered me to arrest you and put you in prison. The commander's aura fluctuated. He took a step forward and appeared in front of Bufang as if he had teleported. Then, he thrust out his palm toward Bufang like a dragon rising from the abyss. It was as if a thunderbolt had torn through the void. He actually attacked like a thunderbolt in the restaurant. Bufang's eyes narrowed, and the look in his eyes became much colder. Again and again, and again and again, Bufang was a little angry. In particular, today was the opening day of his restaurant, and the imperial concubine had sent someone to make trouble. Rumble. Just as the commander of the silver-armored army made his move, a beam of silver light suddenly appeared. No one knew when Xiao Bai had appeared in front of Bufang. His fan-like palm slapped out and collided with the commander of the silver-armored army. Rumble. When the two palms collided, boundless shockwaves burst out. A clanging sound rang out. Whitey took a step back, its mechanical eyes flashing with brilliance. The commander did not move at all, but a look of surprise appeared in his eyes. A puppet? How dare a mere puppet stop me? The commander flew into a rage. Troublemaker! You will be stripped as an example to others. Xiao Bai's mechanical voice rang out, echoing through the entire place. Stripped as an example to others? Xiao Bai's words stunned everyone present. No one had expected Xiao Bai to say such a thing. Did this puppet know what he was talking about? That was a high-grade god, one who had comprehended 50 laws. A mere puppet could be blown to pieces in an instant. The surrounding silver-armored army members sneered. Stripped? They were afraid that it would be the puppet's iron skin that would be stripped later. The young master's expression was slightly strange. Looking at the insolent commander, Bu Fong frowned. Was he looking down on Xiao Bai? Although Xiao Bai's fighting prowess was not as good as that of a high-grade god, if he looked down on Xiao Bai because of this, he would probably suffer a fierce counterattack. Rumble! Xiao Bai moved. A flag fell from the sky and stabbed into the ground in the distance. The long spear appeared, and like a huge dragon, it charged forward with a loud bang. The commander of the silver-armored army unleashed his aura. With a rumble, it collided with Xiao Bai's attack. Xiao Bai staggered back a few steps. The power of a god spread in all directions, but it did not damage the restaurant. The restaurant was protected by the system, so it was not damaged. In the distance, the plain-looking woman, who was sitting in a chair and eating an oyster pancake elegantly, glanced at the restaurant in surprise. Surprisingly, such an attack didn't break the restaurant in the slightest. Interesting, the woman was not in a hurry to make a move. She wanted to see how Bu Fong would deal with it. System, can you bear this humiliation? Looking at Xiao Bai, Bu Fong asked the system in his mind. The system would not allow anyone to cause trouble in the restaurant. Of course, Bu Fong could suppress the disturbance, but since Xiao Bai had threatened to strip him, he would become a laughingstock if he failed. Xiao Bai had a connection with the system, and Bu Fong knew that. The system seemed to be silent. After a long time, a voice rang out. Considering the restaurant's reputation, the system will upgrade Xiao Bai's ability. It will take 1 minute to upgrade the ability. Please hold on for a minute, host. The system's serious voice rang out. Bu Fong froze. It was really coming? Could the system upgrade Xiao Bai's ability? Buzz, all of a sudden Xiao Bai, who was fighting, froze. He stood beside Bu Fong, not moving an inch. Yeah, it had started to upgrade. Bu Fong looked at Xiao Bai, then at the silver-armored guards. If he could hold on for a minute, Xiao Bai would clear his name. Boom! The commander of the silver-armored guards moved. He took a step forward, and his terrifying energy surged, dashing toward Xiao Bai. He wanted to smash that puppet. However, the puppet did not move. Bu Fong leaned to the side, standing in front of Xiao Bai. The black turtle constellation wok appeared in his hand, blocking in front of him. There was a loud thud. The black turtle constellation wok did not budge. The commander took a step back. You still want to strip me? Nowadays, even puppets know how to talk big. The commander of the silver-armored guards sneered. This is Lord Silver Armor's order. If you resist, I'll break your legs and bring you back. Attention, all silver-armored guards. Capture this audacious chef on the spot. His voice rang out like thunder. All the silver-armored guards moved. All the silver-armored army soldiers immediately moved. Clanging sounds rang out from their bodies. Clanging sounds rang out from the bodies of the silver armor guards. They shot toward Bu Fong like bolts of silver lightning. In the blink of an eye, they surrounded him. More than a dozen silver-armored guards and a dozen mid-grade gods had attacked. Even Bu Fong felt a burst of pressure. The expressions of the young master and his wife flickered. Yu and Hades' era also looked unsightly. The capital of the divine dynasty is not friendly at all. However, Bu Fong did not care. He picked up the black turtle constellation wok. The look in Bu Fong's eyes became very deep. With a thought, he smashed the wok down. The wok smashed down hard, as if it had turned into thousands of wok in a flash. They collided with the silver-armored guards. Divine power, wok-tossing spell of affliction. Bu Fong said lightly. Bam! 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 One black walk after another flew out. Every member of the Silver Armor Guard was so furious that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. They felt a powerful force forcing them to kneel on the ground. A black walk floated above their heads. Rumble! More than a dozen silver-armored guards dropped to their knees around Bufang. This scene was exceptionally spectacular, and it shocked everyone present. The commander's face turned unsightly. Bufang is indeed worthy of being the genius demigod who destroyed the Mo family. I can't believe he has suppressed all my men with just one move. But that's not enough. A cold smile came over the commander's face. Suddenly, the commander of the silver-armored guards moved. His figure streaked across the air, leaving numerous afterimages as he charged toward Bufang. The power of the law emerged over his head. 50 laws swayed, turned into ribbons, and fell from the sky. This caused the commander's aura to rise steadily. In a flash, it reached a very terrifying level. A terrible pressure spread from the top floor of the Luo family's skyscraper in all directions. Buzz, attention, host. Xiao Bai's ability has been upgraded, a serious voice rang out. As soon as the voice rang out, a huge palm the size of a cattail leaf fan blocked in front of Bufang, and the commander's attack smashed into the huge palm with a loud bang. It remained unmoved. Xiao Bai's mechanical eyes glanced at the commander, and there seemed to be streams of light shooting out of them. All troublemakers will be stripped. Chapter 1462. All troublemakers will be stripped. Xiao Bai said, his mechanical eyes flashing. Even his voice seemed to have become a little stronger. Bufang took a step back, the corners of his mouth curling up slightly. 1 minute passed by so quickly. But, for some reason, Bufang could not wait to see Xiao Bai strip all the silver armor guard. The eyes of the people around him narrowed slightly. That iron puppet can still fight? Although it's strong, it's no match for a high-grade god. In the brief exchange just now, everyone could tell that the puppet's fighting prowess was about the level of a mid-grade god. It stood no chance against the commander of the Silver Armor Guards. The young master's face was cold. The fact that the commander of the Silver Armor Guards did not take him seriously at all made him very uncomfortable. Although he did not rely on his father, he still felt a little uncomfortable when he found that his father's name was not as useful as it used to be. Has King Pingyang really fallen from grace? Now that his father had fallen from grace, he, as his son, naturally wanted him to regain his glory. The young master's fighting spirit was burning in his heart. Luo Sanyang looked worriedly at Bufang. Although Bufang had used all his trump cards last time, he had only managed to kill Emofeng, who had just become a high-grade god. Moreover, he had exhausted all his trump cards. The reason why a trump card was called a trump card was because it was an unexpected and rare method. If they could be used normally, they would not be called trump cards. What should Bufang do this time? Rely on that iron puppet? Impossible. How could that iron puppet be a match for a high-grade god? Strip him? The commander's eyes flashed as he stared at Xiao Bai. He felt a sense of pressure from White Yi's fan-like palm. He stared at Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai seemed to have changed a lot, but he did not care. He was just a puppet. What a shameless boast. I'm afraid your iron skin is itching for a beating, the commander sneered. The next moment, the power of law circulated. The terrifying power of the law crushed down, wanting to press Xiao Bai to the ground. Bufang took a few steps back and sat on the chair, watching with great interest. Yu and the others stood beside Bufang. They seemed to feel strange about Bufang's calmness. Bufang was very calm. Since the system said that it would improve Xiao Bai's ability, it definitely wouldn't lie. So, it was time for Xiao Bai to perform. Boom! Facing the oppressive laws of the silver-armored army's commander, Xiao Bai's eyes suddenly lit up, as if they were bursting out a brilliant light. Facing the pressure of the law, he punched out. With a loud bang, It directly ignored the suppression of the laws and smashed into the silver armor guard's head. The soft feeling brought about by the contact between the steel fist and the flesh caused everyone present to shiver slightly. That punch, not light at all. Poochie. Blood splattered everywhere. The commander of the silver armor guard didn't expect this to happen at all. His eyes widened as he was sent flying. His body spun 360 degrees before crashing heavily onto the ground. He didn't understand why his pressure of the law had no effect on Xiao Bai. He was a man with the power of 50 laws. Xiao Bai maintained his posture of punching. His eyes once again locked on the silver armor guard, who had fallen to the ground. He took a step forward. A clanging sound rang out. After all, he was a high-grade god. How could he be knocked down so easily? The silver armor guard stood up, opened his mouth, and was about to roar. The power of 50 laws was activated by him at the same time. Suddenly, it was as if thunder was pressing down, and the entire building trembled. Of course, because of the existence of the system, everything in the restaurant was brand new, and it wasn't affected at all. In the distance, the eyes of the woman eating the oyster pancake lit up slightly. She glanced at Xiao Bai in surprise. Immune to the law? Interesting. The woman murmured. Xiao Bai's figure disappeared like a flash of lightning. When it appeared again, the flag on its back was smashed down with a loud bang. The spear stabbed out, sending the commander flying. Die. The silver-armored commander hovered in the air. Law condensed on his hands as he fiercely slapped at Xiao Bai's head. With a bang, he hit Xiao Bai's head. However, the silver-armored commander's expression changed once more. His ferocious strike actually didn't smash White E's head into pieces. The moment his power of law bombarded Xiao Bai's body, it seemed to collapse. It was a very strange feeling. Could it be that the laws were useless against this puppet? That's impossible. Previously, his power of law was still able to suppress this puppet. Why did this puppet suddenly seem to be on steroids? Could it be that he had to fight with his physical body? The fleshly body of a high-grade god was not weak. However, the silver-armored commander specialized in nomological power. If he were to abandon nomological power and clash head-on with Xiao Bai, he would not be able to do so. He was completely going to be beaten up. Xiao Bai's mechanical eyes flickered. His fan-like palm slapped out. Like a huge net, it instantly locked down all the possible escape routes of the silver-armored army's commander. You! The commander felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave. He seemed to feel that something was wrong. He raised his hand. However, his palm was forcibly pressed down by Xiao Bai. The fan-like palm slammed down, forcing him to kneel on the ground. Crack, the silver armor on his body made a cracking sound. Swish, Xiao Bai raised his palm all of a sudden. A clanging sound rang out. The next moment, his silver armor was ripped off, thrown away, and smashed to the ground. The commander of the silver armor army felt a chill run down his spine. The fact that the silver armor on his arm was ripped off startled him a little. He had never encountered such a situation before. He couldn't even use the power of law. Without the power of law, could he still be considered a god? Did he have to use his brutal physical strength to fight? His commander was actually pressed to the ground by a puppet? The mid-grade gods around him also widened their eyes. They had never thought that such a thing would happen. At this moment, the battle had completely exceeded their expectations. Immune to the power of law. Very naughty. The corner of Bu Fang's mouth twitched slightly. He now understood why the system had improved Xiao Bai's ability. Without the power of law, the fighting strength of many gods plummeted. This improvement was not bad at all. Xiao Bai was fearless when it came to a physical collision. Swish. The commander of the silver armor army felt a little desperate. The silver armor on his body was ripped off once again. The thin gown under the silver armor was revealed. How dare you! I'm the commander of the Silver Armor Army under the Divine Emperor. The commander roared, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. He couldn't accept this outcome. The mid-grade gods around him no longer stood by and watched. Instead, they all attacked, pressing toward Xiao Bai. A long spear appeared in his hand. It was a silver long spear. The spear was like a dragon as it rushed towards Whitey. The power of law surged, turning their spears into a real silver dragon that tore through the air. Xiao Bai pressed down on the commander with one hand and swept the spear with the other, shattering the spears in the hands of the Silver Armor Army. Then, he thrust out his palms. The pupils of one of the Silver Armor Army soldiers constricted instantly. He was slapped hard to the ground. A ripping sound rang out. The silver armor on his body was ripped off in an instant. The soldier howled in humiliation, rose to his feet, and tried to resist. However, Xiao Bai picked him up like a chicken and threw him out of the door. The next moment, he flew through the air in an arc and fell outside. The same thing happened to all the Silver Armor Army soldiers. They could not resist at all as they were picked up like chickens and thrown out. One after another, they fell outside. The commander's eyes almost popped out of his socket. "How dare you?" He turned to look at Bufang, who was sitting in a chair and looking at him playfully. "You chef. How dare you openly resist the Silver Armor Army? You will be judged." The commander growled. The problem was that the power of the law had no effect on this puppet, which was almost invincible in physical combat. That was embarrassing, very annoying. "Xiao Bai, strip them thoroughly," said Bufang. Xiao Bai's mechanical eyes flashed, and then his movements accelerated like a whirlwind. This improvement was indeed terrifying. The clothes-stripping crazy demon had finally returned. A faint smile emerged at the corner of Bufang's mouth. Unless a god king came to the restaurant to cause trouble, however, how could a god king be so free as to cause trouble in the restaurant? Rumble. As soon as this thought appeared in Bufang's mind, a terrifying pressure abruptly approached. It completely enveloped the whole building. The expressions of everyone present changed dramatically. The woman, who was eating an oyster pancake, frowned and glanced outside the door. There was a clear sound of footsteps coming from that direction, one after another. Tap, 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 the clear footsteps seemed to come from the 9 nether realms. A man clad in silver armor appeared. He was tall and slender, and the silver armor made him look even taller. At his waist was a long, slender sword. Sword light swirled around the blade. I didn't believe the imperial concubine when she said you were a bold chef. Now, it seems that you live up to your reputation. You do have a lot of guts." His faint voice rang out. Then, a chill enveloped the restaurant in an instant. Behind the silver armor, a sharp gaze shot out. The power of a god king spread completely. The Divine Emperor's Imperial Guard. Silver armor. The expressions of Luo Sanyang, the young master, and the others flickered. Chapter 1463. Silver armor? Everyone's expression changed. The silver armor guards outside put on their clothes. Unfortunately, their clothes were disheveled, but their faces were filled with fanaticism. Silver armor was the military soul of the Silver Armored Army and their spiritual pillar. "This restaurant is finished. That chef is dead. Now that silver armor has appeared, he can't escape." Silver armor was one of the 3 imperial guards of His Majesty. His cultivation base was as high as the heavens, and he was as famous as black armor and gold armor. He was in charge of the 3,000 silver armor guards in the palace, and his strength had suppressed countless people in the Divine Dynasty's capital. This was silver armor. Silver armor's voice was very lazy, but it was sharp and cold. Xiao Bai's mechanical eyes flashed. The next moment, his figure flickered, and he charged towards silver armor. Xiao Bai, who was immune to the laws, was very confident now. The silver armor guards behind silver armor, who had been stripped naked, showed a look of ridicule. This puppet really didn't know how to live. How dare he attack His Excellency silver armor? This iron puppet would soon be smashed into an iron ball. Although they were stripped naked by Xiaobai, silver armor was much stronger than them. The corner of Bu Fang's mouth twitched. Was there really a God King expert? This silver armor should be the same as black armor. His strength must be extremely formidable. Just from the aura emanating from silver armor's body, Bu Fang understood the latter's strength. It was a terrible scene that seemed to cause the surrounding void to shatter. Compared to the head of the Mo family, silver armor seemed to be stronger. Silver armor glanced lazily at Xiao Bai, who was charging toward him. This puppet was very interesting. He was immune to the laws. He had stripped all of his subordinates' clothes. Interesting. The corner of silver armor's mouth curved upward slightly. The next moment, he raised a finger. This puppet was not bad, but in his eyes, it was no different from an ant. This time, he had attacked only to fulfill the imperial concubine's order and bring Bu Fang back. If Bu Fang resisted, he would kill him and bring him back. It could be considered a gift to the imperial concubine. At the thought of the imperial concubine, silver armor's eyes became much gentler. Boom! The power of law surged above silver armor's raised finger. That law was incomparably terrifying, like a ball of resplendent silver light. In the blink of an eye, it had swallowed Xiao Bai. Silver armor soon let out a soft exclamation of surprise. Because he realized that after the silver light splashed, Xiao Bai's figure actually dashed out of the silver light and punched at silver armor. Silver armor was slightly taken aback by what he saw. He really was immune to laws. It could even be immune to the laws of a god king like him. However, a god king expert was a god king after all. His figure disappeared on the spot as if he had teleported. Boom! Xiao Bai threw several punches in a row. His speed was extremely fast as he tried to suppress silver armor. However, a god king realm powerhouse's physical strength was naturally extremely strong. After exchanging several punches with Xiao Bai took a step back. In the distance, Bu Fang stood up, his expression much more serious. Silver armor's strength was very formidable. Even after the system upgrade, Xiao Bai, who was immune to laws within the range of the restaurant and whose parameters had been comprehensively improved, still could not do anything to him. Bu Fang felt that he had to think of something. This puppet is very interesting. I can take it back and study it. If I can figure out a way to be immune to laws, the Silver Armor Guards will surely become the strongest army in the Xiai Divine Dynasty. Silver Armor stared at Xiao Bai, his eyes bursting with bright light. It was a look of pleasant surprise. Be a good boy and surrender. Was the ability to be immune to laws strong? Without a doubt, it was very strong. Laws were the foundation of a god. Without laws, a god would be as weak as a tiger that had lost its claws and teeth. If he could figure out the principle and master the ability to be immune to laws, his fighting prowess would probably improve exponentially, and he might even be able to face a god emperor head-on. He should not be afraid of a god emperor who did not have the power of laws. At that time, he could even become the strongest existence in the entire divine dynasty. At the thought of this, Silver Armor became more and more excited. Boom! Silver Armor unleashed the aura in his body even more unscrupulously. This aura was extremely terrifying, and it caused the void to tremble and crack. The terrifying power seemed to be able to crush everything. Luo Sanyang and the others felt their breathing quicken under the pressure. It was extremely unbearable. Bu Fang narrowed his eyes. However, Bu Fang suddenly froze. He turned his head and saw the ordinary-looking woman who was stuffing the last piece of the oyster pancake into her mouth. The woman's aura suddenly changed. An aura that was not weaker than Silver Armor's soared into the sky. It actually forcibly suppressed Silver Armor's aura. Silver Armor's expression changed abruptly. He looked over abruptly. At this moment, the ordinary-looking woman's face had undergone a tremendous change. That ordinary face was no longer ordinary, for it was no longer possible to make out her appearance. All that could be seen was a blur. Sure enough, it's her, the Deputy Palace Lord of the Divine Chef Temple. Summer. The Princess of the Shei Divine Dynasty. It's you. Silver Armor, of course, sensed Summer's aura, and his expression changed abruptly. He had been here for so long, but he didn't realize that Summer was in this restaurant. She was dressed in a long, curly red dress, and her long hair fluttered in the wind. The corners of her big red lips curved upward into a sarcastic smile. "Silver Armor," she said. Silver Armor's body tensed, then he chuckled and said, "I didn't expect Your Excellency to be in this restaurant. Please forgive me for not going out to welcome you." "Get lost," Summer said indifferently. She said the word "get lost" very gently. However, as soon as she said that, Silver Armor's face froze. All the people present were slightly taken aback. Everyone sucked in a deep breath. She actually told Silver Armor to get lost. Who is this woman? The young master stared at the woman with wide eyes. He gulped down a mouthful of saliva. The Princess of the Divine Dynasty? Isn't she the princess who was extremely powerful and talented in the past? Even my father is a little frightened when he talks about her. Why is this woman in Mr. Bu's restaurant? Your Excellency, the Imperial Concubine has ordered us to capture this chef. Don't make it difficult for me, Silver Armor said indifferently. He was indeed a little afraid of Summer. He was indeed a little wary of Summer. She was a god-king with monstrous talent and terrifying strength. Moreover, she was a god-king who had comprehended the supreme law of the universe. The law of space was elusive, and he had no confidence that he could defeat her. The Imperial Concubine? That bitch? Summer raised her head slightly and said lightly. As soon as she said that, all the people present sucked in a cold breath. How dare she call the Imperial Concubine a bitch? She's indeed the princess. Silver Armor's expression changed abruptly, and a fierce light burst out of his eyes. Your Excellency, I respect you, but don't push your luck. Her Excellency is not to be insulted, he said coldly. Silver Armor said coldly, his aura fluctuating. The Imperial Concubine would always be a piece of pure land in his heart, an existence that was not allowed to be polluted. Summer sneered. The Imperial Concubine can't be insulted? Are you the Divine Emperor's Silver Armor or the Imperial Concubine's? Summer said coldly. The surrounding people kept quiet out of fear. They were not qualified to interrupt a conversation of this level. How could ordinary people dare to talk about the Imperial Concubine? That was a capital offense punishable by death. Only Summer, as the Deputy Palace Lord of the Divine Chef Temple and a princess, dared to talk like that. Silver Armor's face was livid. Although he was wearing a mask and no one could see his expression, everyone knew that he did not look good at this moment. I am naturally His Excellency Divine Emperor's Silver Armor, and I will always serve His Excellency Divine Emperor, Silver Armor said. His tone was so cold that it seemed to shoot out from the gaps between his teeth. I can't tell. Why do I feel that you are that bitch's lackey? Summer shook her head. Her tone was still so bitter and mean. Your Excellency, if you continue to insult the Imperial Concubine like this, I won't be polite anymore. Are you angry from embarrassment? I don't know what's wrong with the Divine Emperor, but you must remember, in the Shei Divine Dynasty, you will always be His Excellency's subordinate. You must remember your identity. Xiaoji said. Every word was like a sharp sword that pierced Silver Armor's chest. Silver Armor's breathing became rapid. Your Excellency, I don't need you to remind me of these words. I understand, but no matter what, I have to take this chef with me. Silver Armor's aura began to spread. The whole skyscraper, and even the whole divine dynasty, was enveloped in this terrible aura. The Luo family's skyscraper was shaking violently. Around the skyscraper, in the void, there were many figures hidden in the void. Their gazes were incomparably sharp as they stared at the top floor of the skyscraper, at the battle. The fight between Silver Armor, the Divine Emperor's Imperial Guard, and the princess. It was very eye-catching. Take this chef with you? Have you forgotten the Divine Emperor's order? You're not allowed to attack the Divine Chef Temple? Summer's red dress fluttered as she walked slowly in the void. Silver Armor's pupils constricted. I dare not forget the Divine Emperor's order, but, Your Excellency, this chef is outside the Divine Chef Temple now, so I don't think the Divine Chef Temple can do anything about him. Silver Armor said coldly. The Divine Chef Temple can't do anything about him? The corner of Summer's mouth twitched slightly. The next moment, she turned her eyes and rested them on Bufang. Little Boo, show your sign. Summer's red lips parted slightly. As soon as she said that, everyone was slightly taken aback. The corner of Bufang's mouth twitched. Show my sign? Why does that sound so strange? Show my sign? The people around him were also slightly taken aback. Many people were stunned as well. They wondered what Summer was up to. Bufang felt a little helpless. Under the watchful eyes of so many people, he could only show his sign. With a thought in his mind, he took out a token from the system's storage space. He held it in his hand. Then, Bufang grabbed the token and waved it in the air. His movement was not big. However, everyone's eyes were attracted by the token in Bufang's hand. Whether it was Silver Armor, the young master, or Luo Sanyang, even the group of people watching the fight outside sucked in a cold breath at this moment. The shock in everyone's heart seemed to be about to explode. Is this the token of the Lord of the Divine Chef Temple? When did this chef become the Lord of the Divine Chef Temple? Everyone was dumbfounded. Chapter 1464. The Lord of the Divine Chef Temple? Good heavens! How could this little chef be the Lord of the Divine Chef Temple? The people present were a little confused. Whether they were Bufang's enemies or Bufang's acquaintances, they all had a dull look on their faces. Except, of course, for Summer, the woman shrouded in a haze. The woman's red lips curved upward as if she was satisfied with these people's attitudes. What she needed was this shock to shock these people about Bufang's identity. Rumble. Silver Armor's aura fluctuated, exuding a terrible power. His eyes burst into silver light and his gaze, like a sharp sword, shot toward Bufang. How could he be the Lord of the Divine Chef Temple? Where is that guy? Silver Armor's voice was deep, almost growling. Bufang raised the token and waved it around. This token was made of a strange material, and it felt very good in his hand. It was as cold as ice, yet it was as warm as volcanic rock. Mental strength poured into the token. Through the token, the mental strength would become very stable. He could feel that his mental power was increasing steadily. Rumble. Bufang could feel Silver Armor's anger, which puzzled Bufang. Could it be that, as the Lord of the Divine Chef Temple, I'm in the way of this guy? Summer floated down and landed in front of Bufang, blocking Bufang from Silver Armor's aura. Where is that guy? Did he run away like a coward? That damn guy! Silver Armor was furious, and his aura seemed to be on the verge of overflowing. His aura turned into a dazzling silver light, and the aura of a god-king exploded out. Over his head, the power of law turned into a wheel of law, spinning as if causing the void to be destroyed. This was the power of a god-king. It was the top fighting force of a divine dynasty. I don't know where that guy went, but there is no doubt that Bufang is now the Lord of the Divine Chef Temple, so Bufang represents the Divine Chef Temple. If you capture Bufang, you will be going against the Divine Chef Temple, which is against the Divine Emperor's order. Are you going to go against the divine emperor's order? Do you dare? Xia Chen had an exquisite figure. Her words were powerful and resonant, as if thunder was ringing out. It caused the void to tremble continuously. Silver Armor took a step back. His eyes seemed to be bloodshot. This was his unwillingness to resign to his fate. Damn it! Damn it! He escaped. He actually escaped. Unable to restrain his anger, Silver Armor's eyes shone with fury. How could you let that guy escape? He destroyed everything I had. He destroyed the woman I loved, so now he's running away? Silver Armor kept roaring. Boom. Silver Armor raised his palm, and a rule wheel condensed in his hand. Frightening godly king divine power circulated, turning into a drop of water that was extremely heavy. The water droplets swept out and instantly splashed in the void. The blow went straight toward Bufang. It completely ignored Xia Chen, who was standing in front of Bufang. The blow contained the will of a god king, and he wanted to kill Bufang once and for all. It was as if Silver Armor's resentment toward the former lord of the divine chef temple had been transferred to Bufang. The corner of Bufang's mouth twitched violently as he stood behind Summer. Mu Hongzi. What did he do to Silver Armor? Why does Silver Armor have such a deep resentment toward Mu Hongzi? Sure enough, the identity of the Lord of the Divine Chef Temple is not a good thing. How dare you! Summer's eyes lit up and burst into dazzling light. She raised her perfect hand, and the power of law emerged over her body. The transparent law of space kept piling up. The space in front of her kept shrinking and shrinking. It made the distance between her and Silver Armor countless times wider. Silver Armor's blow disappeared completely. The law of space was extremely profound, and it was extremely powerful when used in combat. Boom! Silver Armor staggered back a few steps. He was infuriated. Silver Armor, you've changed. How dare you disobey the Divine Emperor? Summer shouted. Her words struck at Silver Armor's heart. This caused Silver Armor to retreat continuously. The God Emperor was like a huge rock that suppressed the world, weighing down on Silver Armor's heart. The surrounding people fell silent. Some were amazed by Summer's strength, and some were amazed by Silver Armor's crazy look. Even Bufang sighed softly. This Silver Armor is a man with a story and courage. That guy has run away. I'll find him and kill him. However, the Divine Chef Temple. Even if the Lord has changed, it can't hide the fact that it should be destroyed. Silver Armor sneered. Your Excellency. We'll meet again someday. I don't believe that you won't look for that man after he ran away. As long as Your Excellency is not here, the Divine Chef Temple will be flattened by me. Silver Armor's cold voice was sonorous, and his voice sounded like heavy metal smashing into the void. A deafening rumble echoed out. He could not believe that the relationship between Silver Armor and the Divine Chef Temple was so bad. Where are the Silver Armor guards? Silver Armor took a step back and roared. The Silver Armor guards, who were stripped by Xiao Bai, straightened their backs, and their eyes shone brightly. Their eyes were full of pride, which was their pride for their Lord Silver Armor. Retreat. I'll come back in the future and flatten the Divine Chef Temple. Silver Armor stood in the center of the crowd's encirclement, leaving behind his ruthless words. Then, he turned around and was about to leave. Suddenly, the moment Silver Armor turned in the sky, a rumbling sound rang out. The cries of phoenixes rang through the sky. Billowing flames swept over, shining with a dazzling radiance. Oh! As soon as this strange phenomenon appeared, everyone was stunned. In the capital, the warships and the dragon horse chariots came to a sudden halt. Everyone raised their heads and looked at the sky. Over there, a terrifying existence soared through the air and approached. 9 phoenixes, which looked like phoenixes wrapped in burning flames, slowly drifted over. The phoenixes spread their wings and flapped them, sprinkling flaming feathers down. As soon as the feathers fell, they dissipated in midair, turned into pure energy, and fused with the void. The cries of phoenixes rang through the sky. A group of maids flew through the sky, their long dresses fluttering in the wind. One eunuch after another walked slowly with his head bowed. "Welcome, the imperial concubine." His sharp voice seemed to tear the sky apart. The leading eunuch raised his head and cried out. The 9 phoenixes spread their wings and flew over, pulling a magnificent phoenix chariot. They looked like golden crows flying across the sky. Terrifying energy fluctuations were surging unceasingly. Silver Armor, who was about to turn back, jerked his head up, his eyes flashing with silver light. Shaoji, Silver Armor seemed to be murmuring. As the phoenixes flew across the sky was blotted out by the phenomenon. The experts hiding in the void all revealed themselves and bowed respectfully toward the sky. In the divine dynasty, the nobility of one's status represented everything. Now that the imperial concubine was traveling, they had to show the necessary respect. It was just like how the imperial concubine used 9 phoenixes to pull her chariot. The phoenixes lived and bred in the phoenix nest, which, like the Dragon Valley, was a famous great world. Moreover, the most important thing was that the phoenix nest did not belong to the great world under the jurisdiction of the Xiai divine dynasty. Therefore, having 9 phoenixes pulling her chariot was enough to show how much the divine emperor valued the imperial concubine. Swoosh, the silver armor guards knelt down. Luo Sanyang, the young master, and the others also knelt on the ground. They had to salute the imperial concubine. This was the basic etiquette of a subject. Bufang narrowed his eyes as he stared at the 9 phoenixes in the sky. His spirit sea had long been restless. Whether it was the golden divine dragon or the vermilion bird, they were restless. The golden divine dragon's restlessness was pure restlessness, the restlessness of seeing the opposite sex. The vermilion bird's restlessness was anger. However, Bufang was a little puzzled. The vermilion bird was also a female, so why was the golden divine dragon not restless? The maids and eunuchs were flying across the sky, and petals were falling. At the very least, the imperial concubine's trip was well planned. The phoenix chariot opened. A figure covered in golden light walked out of the phoenix chariot. As soon as the silhouette appeared, it was a peerless beauty that was incomparably moving. Everything else seemed to be overshadowed by her. Summer clasped her hands behind her back and twitched her red lips slightly. She was not in awe of the beautiful woman who stepped out of the phoenix chariot. "This coquettish bitch," she said disdainfully. "The lord of the divine chef temple, why didn't you kneel when you saw me?" The imperial concubine's eyes were proud and lofty. The 9 phoenixes wheeled around her, making her look like the real supreme empress of heaven. Bufang paused. He turned his head to the left and right, and only then did he realize that the woman was calling him. Bufang thought for a moment. His face was expressionless, and he didn't say anything, indicating that he didn't hear anything. All the people present were speechless. In the sky, a eunuch pinched an orchid and pointed a finger at Bufang. "How dare you? You're courting death if you don't kneel when you see the imperial concubine." The eunuch said. Rumble. All of a sudden, the eunuch's eyes were filled with horror. A terrible aura spread in an instant. The void around the eunuch's body began to crack like a square. The eunuch's body also broke into pieces and was devoured by the distorted void. Summer clasped her hands behind her back, her long black hair fluttering in the wind. "Who gave you the courage to talk to the lord of the divine chef temple like that?" she said coldly. The eunuch who spoke was dead. She had killed him. Summer, who had mastered the law of space, was unimaginably strong. "Summer, you are the princess of this dynasty. Why are you against me?" "I'm talking about that chef. What does it have to do with you?" The imperial concubine said, looking at Summer with cold eyes. "I'm not a princess. I'm the deputy of the divine chef temple. That eunuch insulted the lord of the divine chef temple in front of me. "He deserves to die," she said. She slowly stepped into the air, ascending step by step. Before long, she was in midair. She confronted the imperial concubine. All the people present kept quiet out of fear. She was indeed the hot-tempered princess. She was indeed domineering. She even dared to talk back to the imperial concubine. The imperial concubine's eyes were cold, and her chest was heaving. "Summer, do you really think I dare not punish you? You coquettish bitch! Do you think I'm afraid of you?" Summer shook her head and sneered. "Haha. Very well. I'm going to catch this chef today. I'd like to see who dares to stop me," the imperial concubine said coldly. "Silver armor." "Here," she cried. Silver armor took a step forward and rose into the sky in a flash. "Catch the chef," the imperial concubine continued. Silver armor's eyes flashed. "Yes." His voice rang out. Silver armor roared, and his aura erupted completely. At this moment, it was as if a dormant dragon had awakened. The whole capital was shaking. Rumble! He turned into a beam of silver light and sped toward Bufang. He raised his hand. Silver light gathered in his hand and turned into a sword. The sword was also flowing with silver light. This sword contained an incomparably terrifying killing intent. It represented the killing intent of a god king. As the sword swept across the sky, the void began to crack inch by inch. The silver light contained the power of at least 100 laws. The blow shocked everyone. Summer focused her eyes. "You really dare to disobey the divine emperor's order?" she said angrily. However, the imperial concubine's aura spread, and a supreme phoenix seemed to emerge behind her. The oppressive aura made Summer's body stiffen slightly. "Silver armor. Kill him. I'll take care of the divine emperor. This little chef must be killed." The imperial concubine's voice shook heaven and earth. Everyone's expression abruptly changed. Is the imperial concubine crazy? How dare she openly disobey the divine emperor's order in front of so many people in the capital? Silver armor's expression did not change as he slashed with his sword. It carried the momentum of a fatal blow. Bufang took a deep breath. In his spirit sea, the palm of his divine sense true form had already grabbed the god of cooking's divine power liquid drop. In a flash, he would crush it and fight silver armor. However, just as Bufang was about to strike, the token of the divine chef temple's lord suddenly flashed. It turned into a stream of light and shot toward silver armor's sword. Chapter 1465. This change was beyond everyone's expectations. No one had expected the palace lord's token to move on its own. Originally, Bufang had planned to crush the god of cooking's divine power liquid drop. In fact, Bufang was not sure if the god of cooking's divine power liquid drop could help him fight against a god king. However, given the mystery of the god of cooking's liquid drop, it was really hard to say. However, the appearance of the token made Bufang not choose to crush the divine power liquid drop for the time being. He chose to wait and see. With a ripping sound, the token turned into a stream of light and shot out, cutting through the sky in an instant and rushing toward silver armor's sword light. The two collided with each other and produced a rumbling sound. A rumbling sound rang out, as if there was the sound of a powerful army surging. Silver armor's sword light was immediately swept back. The medallion had actually blocked the attack of a divine king. This was rather unbelievable. Bufang stood where he was, squinting at the scene in the sky. The imperial concubine and Summer were confronting each other. The two women were putting on a show, not to mention two powerful women. Their auras collided with each other and kept rumbling. However, compared to the imperial concubine, Summer's aura was slightly weaker. After all, the imperial concubine was the imperial concubine. With the support of the 9 phoenixes, she was even more terrifying. No one had expected the imperial concubine to appear. After all, she was of noble status, and would not choose to leave the palace easily. But this time, she actually appeared on the top of the Luo family's skyscraper and attacked a restaurant. It was clear that the imperial concubine hated Bufang to the extreme. Part of the reason might be because Bufang had killed Emohen. But the more important reason, Bufang guessed, might be because of the vermilion bird's insults to the imperial concubine. Silver Armor stood proudly in the void, holding a silver longsword. The silver longsword looked like it was made of mercury, and there were round droplets of liquid constantly flowing on it. It was bright and colorful. However, Silver Armor's face was very serious. He stared at the palace lord's token floating in the distance, his eyes cold. "You want to stop me with a mere token? The imperial concubine said you have to die. You won't live past today," Silver Armor said. He stomped his foot down. His figure shot out once again, as if he had turned into a streak of light. His longsword swept out, slashing down thousands upon thousands of sword lights. Every single sword light contained a terrifying power of law. Bufang narrowed his eyes. He did not make a move. Instead, he stared at the palace master's token. Since this thing moved on its own, there must be something special about it. Buzz, true enough. The token lit up. The two colors of ice and fire spread out from the token. It looked very unique. After a while, an elegant voice resounded from the token. "Xia xia xia xia" quietly passed by, leaving a little secret in my heart, deep in my heart, deep in my heart, I can't tell you, heh. The melodious and cheerful background music rang out, making Bufang speechless. This familiar tone. There was no doubt that it was that guy again in the distance. Xia xia, who was confronting the imperial concubine, had an ashen face. He couldn't even control the law energy in his body, as if it was about to explode. His figure twisted, Summer's figure appeared in front of the token. Buzz Mu Hongzi's vague figure emerged in the void. He was handsome, slender, and as beautiful as a woman. There was no doubt that he was Mu Hongzi. He was as coquettish as ever. Accompanied by the background music, he swayed his waist briskly. However, Xia Xiaji slapped him. Mu Hongzi's shadow instantly became blurry, and it was almost shattered. "I haven't seen you for a long time, but you're still as hot-tempered as ever? Can you be a little gentler? Like what my background music says." Mu Hongzi's figure gradually became clear. A hint of helplessness came over his handsome face. Summer's graceful figure heaved up and down in anger. Holding the silver sword, Silver Armor's eyes burst with monstrous, killing intent. In the distance, the imperial concubine's body froze. Her red lips parted in astonishment. She looked at Mu Hongzi with a complicated look in her eyes. All kinds of emotions flashed through her eyes, including entanglement, complexity, regret, and resentment. The experts in the surrounding void were also dumbfounded. They looked at Mu Hongzi, who had shown up again, and did not know what to say. This annoying fellow, who stirred up a storm in the Divine Dynasty, is back again? Well, let's not talk about anything else. I just came out to make my presence known. Also, let me tell you frankly, Bufang will become the Lord of the Divine Chef Temple. Are you surprised? Are you surprised? I believe that under Bufang's leadership, the Divine Chef Temple will surely rise to glory and become the supreme power in the chaotic universe. Mu Hongzi said. The surrounding people were speechless. Bufang was speechless. Is this guy crazy? Bufang looked at Mu Hongzi, who was talking confidently in midair, and resisted the urge to slap him. No wonder Summer slapped him without saying a word when she saw him. This guy just came out to attract hatred for me. Summer hovered at Mu Hongzi's side with a complicated look in her eyes. Mu Hongzi's appearance this time was to announce Bufang's identity, and he would probably not show up again. For some reason, she felt a little sad in her heart. She felt that she must find this guy and give him a good beating. For a moment, the scene was a little awkward. Everyone was watching Mu Hongzhi's performance. Silver armor suppressed his aura. Suddenly, his aura exploded out. Go to hell. His resentment for Mu Hongzhi exploded endlessly, and he approached in a flash like a beam of light. With a slash of the sword, the power of countless laws, the sun, and the vault of heaven rumbled and shook the whole divine dynasty. At this moment, silver armor did not hide his cultivation base at all. Heaven and earth shook when a god-king attacked with his full strength. The expressions of the surrounding people changed. The consequences of silver armor's crazy attack were unimaginable. One expert after another soared into the sky and unleashed their power to form a barrier that enveloped the surrounding area. That way, the energy of silver armor's attack would not leak out and destroy the entire capital. The sword came down from the sky, filled with countless laws. The void shattered, and pitch-black rifts emerged and devoured everything. The token emitted a warm aura. A gentle smile came over Mu Hongzhi's handsome face. The next moment, he raised a finger, which seemed to be from a great distance. Rumble! The sky was filled with sword light, and all the sword light exploded. It was as dazzling as fireworks. After this move, Mu Hongzhi's aura in the token began to slowly fade. Remember, from now on, the Lord of the Divine Chef Temple is Bufang, Mu Hongzhi said solemnly before disappearing. His voice rang out. It seemed to resonate with the supreme existences. Rumble! In the direction of the Divine Chef Temple, streams of light soared into the sky. One by one, the experts stepped through the air. Their terrifying auras fluctuated, as if they had turned into ripples that connected into one. We elders of the Divine Chef Temple welcome the Lord of the Divine Chef Temple. A terrible aura spread. These elders of the Divine Chef Temple had superb cooking skills, and of course, their cultivation bases were even stronger. Most of them were perfected gods, and there was even a god-king among them. These existences came walking over. Their auras were oppressive. The faces of all the people in the divine dynasty flickered. The imperial concubine's expression flickered. Silver Armor's face grew serious as well. With a rumble, Silver Armor fell back to her side. At Bufang's side, many old men walked in the air, their powerful auras spreading. Almost all the top members of the Divine Chef Temple had appeared, standing behind Bufang. Luo Sanyang and the young master were dumbfounded. How did Bufang's status suddenly become so noble? Why was the gap between people's fortunes so huge? 9 Phoenixes soared. There was a look of fear on the imperial concubine's beautiful face. The Lord of the Divine Chef Temple. Now, Bufang is really the Lord of the Divine Chef Temple. His status is so noble that she can't easily control it. Even if she dares, the Divine Emperor will not spare her. The Divine Emperor has a good relationship with the Divine Chef Temple, and he will not allow her to do this. Damn Mu Hongzhi! The imperial concubine's face twisted, and her beautiful face lost its elegance. She didn't dare to make another move. If she did, she would really be looking down on the Divine Emperor. Once the Divine Emperor wakes up, she will have to face his wrath. However, as the imperial concubine, she couldn't afford to give up like this. It was a great blow to her dignity as the imperial concubine that she wanted to capture Bufang with great fanfare, only to leave with her tail between her legs. She couldn't stand this injustice. Silver Armor understood this as well. So he sighed regretfully. He had wanted to take the opportunity to kill Bufang in an instant just now. Unfortunately, he had missed the opportunity. Now, if he made another move, it would be a real treason. The imperial concubine stood in front of the phoenix chariot, her face uncertain. Her eyes were fixed on Bufang, who was standing on top of the skyscraper. She had come here in person, but she couldn't kill this chef who had offended her dignity. She, the imperial concubine, was about to lose all her face. Do I really have to retreat like this? The imperial concubine was reluctant. Silver Armor saw how indignant she was. Silver Armor's eyes became gentle, and the images in his mind kept changing. They were images of his past memories. The girl in his memory was lovely, pure, and had a heart-warming smile. He had once told himself that he would spend the rest of his life protecting the girl. He didn't want the girl to suffer any injustice. So he had tried everything he could to stay by the girl's side. The imperial concubine frowned. Suddenly, Silver Armor, who was at her side, moved. His eyes seemed a little blurry as he raised his hand and slowly stroked her face. He seemed to want to soothe her furrowed brows. The imperial concubine froze. She stared blankly. If Silver Armor really did that, the whole world would be in an uproar. After all, there were so many eyes watching them. Finally, when Silver Armor's hand was about to soothe the imperial concubine's brows, his eyes became clear. His outstretched hand also stopped in its track. The beauty of the past was gone. However, he was still Silver Armor. His original intention remained the same. Boom! Silver Armor's eyes suddenly became sharp. The next moment, as if teleporting, he closed the distance between them in an instant and charged toward Bufang. He wanted to kill Bufang with this move. Everyone was dumbfounded. Even the experts of the Divine Chef Temple were stunned. Summer twitched her mouth. That coquettish bitch. Protect the palace lord. The surrounding elders of the Divine Chef Temple roared, and their auras fluctuated and kept rising. Terrible auras merged together as if to attack the sun and the moon. Silver Armor alone faced dozens of elders of the Divine Chef Temple. He was charging forward with an indomitable spirit. He was willing to sacrifice himself just to dispel the sorrow of the beauty. A clanging sound rang out. Silver Armor's silver armor shattered with a rumble. As everyone sucked in their breaths, Silver Armor finally revealed his true face. It was a silver-haired man with a long, narrow sword scar on his face. His eyes were firm, and there was a smile on his lips. He crossed the ages with a sword just to kill Bufang. He turned to look at the imperial concubine with a gentle look in his eyes. Then, he thrust his sword across the sky, and a silver beam of law burst out. Bufang twitched the corner of his mouth as he watched Silver Armor dodge the elders as if he had teleported. Is this an unprecedented sadomasochism? Are you sure you're not here to be funny? Bufang twitched his mouth slightly. The next moment, he crushed the divine power liquid drop in his spirit sea. Even if it was an unprecedented sadomasochism, he, Bufang, should not pay for it. A dragon roar resounded through the sky. The dragon bone kitchen knife fell into Bufang's hand. The shadow of the golden divine dragon soared into the sky. The power of the god of cooking's divine power liquid drop poured into it. In the face of Silver Armor's sword, Bufang slashed out brazenly. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.